Chapter 8:11. The other four also looked coldly at Chu Feilong's face. The room was filled with an intense killing intent. Chu Feilong, who had been their brother for so many years, died so tragically in front of them. The hatred and anger of the four could no longer be contained. At this moment, they needed to vent. They needed to take revenge. Obviously, once Yi Wubo had confirmed Chu Feilong's identity as a spy, Chu Feilong wouldn't be able to walk out of this room alive even if he had 10,000 live. Cold sweat dripped down Chu Feilong's face. He felt that the killing intent was getting more and more intense, as if his head would fly away from his house in the next moment. In a hurry, he shouted, 13th Master, there's a misunderstanding. Think about it, I've been loyal to you for the past 20 years. When have I done anything to disappoint you? Even if I'm really a spy, there's no need to wait for 20 years to take action at this sensitive period, right? Yi Wubo said coldly, you must have a big plan after enduring for so many years. But his tone had become slightly gentler. Chu Feilong said anxiously, besides, that Chu Yang is only a bastard who was left behind in the lower three heavens. What ability does he have to cultivate to the level of a sword emperor? 13th Master, it's not possible for an ordinary sword emperor to injure old Third Ma severely and kill him. This sword emperor should be at least a 9th grade sword emperor close to the monarch level. He took a breath and endured the panic in his heart. He said, even if this little bastard is from a big clan like the Yi clan, it's impossible for him to cultivate to the level of a sword emperor at the age of 18. 13th Master, you must be clear about this. Yi Wubo was really pondering this time. Yes, even his eldest nephew, Yi Kanmeng, who was recognized as the #1 genius in the heavens and the #1 Grand Duke of the Yi clan, broke through to the level of a first-grade sword emperor at the age of 22. At that time, this news even shocked the big clans. An abandoned child who grew up in the lower three heavens could actually cultivate to the level of a sword emperor who could kill old Third Ma, who was a third-grade martial monarch, at the age of 18. Even Yi Wubo himself didn't believe in this matter. But could the news that old Third Ma sent back at the risk of his life be a lie? The other few people still looked at Chu Feilong with suspicion and murderous intent. Templar, I need an explanation for this matter. Yi Wubo looked at Chu Feilong coldly. I want to see this Chu Yang. Chu Feilong agreed repeatedly. Only then did he wipe off the cold sweat on his head. He only felt that his clothes were drenched in cold sweat at this moment. Then, she became worried. That little bastard Chu Yang, how can I command him? Not to mention asking him to meet Yi Wubo. Yi Wubo lowered his eyes that were like will-o'-the-wisps. He looked at the scarlet blood on the sword. That was old Third Ma's life. The lives of his loyal subordinates who had followed him for so many years. He was buried here just like that. Chu Feilong, don't you have any suspicions? In the entire southeast region, apart from the Xiao family and the law enforcers, who else could make old Third Ma unable to escape? As for the Xiao clan and the enforcers, they did not dare to act rashly against the Yi clan. Even if he wanted to take action, he would deal with the most important and core figures of the Yi family. What was the big deal about killing old Third Ma? Was he looking for trouble by alerting the enemy? If it weren't for your nephew, how could Third Ma have died? If he wasn't the one who did it, then it must be someone else. You're just a nephew who just came back. How could you have a monarch-level expert following you around all the time? Wasn't this a joke? This kind of thing was impossible in the Yi clan. Then, there was only one explanation. Chu Yang had already prepared for this. Why did he prepare for this? Chu Feilong. How could you get away with this? As long as he could see Chu Yang, the truth would be revealed. Seeing that Chu Feilong was in a dilemma, Yi Wubo added another sentence sinisterly. I don't care what means you use. You have to bring Chu Yang to me within 3 days. If I don't see Chu Yang within 3 days, then you, Chu Feilong, have to make arrangements for your funeral on the next night. Yi Wubo's will-o'-the-wisp's eyes flickered. The atmosphere in the room was stiff and cold. Chu Feilong's whole body was covered in cold sweat again. He bowed and said, yes. 13th Master, don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll bring Chu Yang, that little bastard, to you. Yi Wubo snorted. He turned his wrist, and his long sword silently returned to its sheath. He glanced at Chu Feilong from the corner of his eyes coldly. Net, after a long time, Yi Wubo got up gently and came to the side of Third Ma's corpse. He stretched out his hand and gently touched Third Ma's cold face. He said softly, "Third Ma, I'll avenge you. You have to believe me. As long as I find the murderer, no matter who he is, and no matter what he has done for me, I'll let him die." He said the following 3 words word by word, full of murderous intent. As his hand touched Third Ma's face, Third Ma's round eyes suddenly closed peacefully. At the side, Chu Feilong felt a chill in his heart and shuddered. "Take Third Ma's corpse and let's go." Yi Wubo walked to the door and stopped. With his back facing Chu Feilong, he said slowly, "Chu Feilong, I'll be here 3 days later, waiting to kill you. Or kill Chu Yang." Then, his figure flashed and disappeared strangely. The other 4 people also walked out. The elder with a goatee silently carried Third Ma's corpse and walked out without saying a word. None of them looked at Chu Feilong. Even the martial monarch level guard that the Yi clan had sent to protect Chu Feilong also walked out without looking back. Chu Feilong stood stiffly in the room. He only felt that his mind was in a mess. Yi Wubo is still suspicious of me. And he's very suspicious of me. He actually has the intention to kill me. That last sentence was obviously referring to me. After so many years of hard work, did I end up with such an ending? At this moment, Chu Feilong's heart was suddenly filled with endless resentment. "Yi Shisan, don't tell me that I, Chu Feilong, am just a dispensable character in your eyes. You want to kill me just because of old Third Ma, who is just a follower of yours. And you want to kill me so unjustly? Chu Yang, it's all your fault, you little bastard. Ever since you came, I, Chu Feilong, have been surrounded by endless troubles, endless crises. If I don't kill you, I can't even establish myself in the Chu clan. If I don't kill you, I can't gain Yi Wubo's trust. Chu Yang, if I don't kill you, I'm not a human." As Chu Yang walked all the way back, the sword spirit in the tribulation space was already a little agitated. Because the sword spirit only remembered now that Chu Yang had broken through the bottleneck to become a sword sovereign. Why are you a sword sovereign? Why can you break through to become a sword sovereign? The sword spirit was puzzled. After witnessing the battle between Chu Yang and Third Ma, the sword spirit was sure. Although there was sword aura when Chu Yang broke through previously, the sword spirit didn't think much about it because Chu Yang had always used swords as his main weapon. But before this battle, the momentum that made all swords submit to him was real. The sword spirit was extremely puzzled. Why can't I break through to become a sword sovereign? Compared to the sword spirit's astonishment, Chu Yang was also extremely puzzled. The sword spirit cried, "It's impossible for a sword sovereign to appear during the process of upgrading. You can only become an emperor, a martial emperor. No tribulation sword master has ever become a sword sovereign. So what?" Chu Yang was puzzled. "Others can't, but it doesn't mean I can't. Or maybe they have some other kind of cultivation base." The sword spirit shook his head resolutely. "Absolutely impossible. You're definitely abnormal. Chu Yang, why? Isn't the sword sovereign level to respect the tribulation sword? Why can't the tribulation sword master become a sword sovereign?" The sword spirit said, "The master who created the tribulation sword strictly stipulated that because of the tribulation sword, there would be a sword sovereign. But the sword sovereign isn't the tribulation sword master, but the tribulation sword. So, everyone who uses swords in the world can reach this level as long as they cultivate hard. Only the tribulation sword master can't." Chu Yang was stunned. "What kind of logic is this?" The sword spirit said, "Back then, the master left a message to warn about this. He said, the tribulation sword wants to sink, and the sword is the emperor. He commands all the swords in the world and fights the wind and clouds alone. If the sword master can't be obtained, the sword master must not be separated. This goes against the way of the heavens, and misfortunes and blessings will attract one's own attention. The meaning behind this is that if the tribulation sword master becomes a sword sovereign, he will be in conflict with the tribulation sword, the emperor of the tribulation sword. This goes against the way of the heavens. So, no tribulation sword master in history has ever become a sword sovereign." Chu Yang laughed. So what if I become a sword sovereign? Since my debut, what has not been against the way of the heavens? So what if I go against the way of the heavens again? The sword spirit was stunned, speechless at how open-minded this guy was. Chu Yang said, besides, the last sentence is misfortunes and blessings will attract one's own attention. There's not only misfortune but also blessings. If others can't, why can't I? This is simply ridiculous. If it's a misfortune, I'll bear it. If it's a blessing, I'll accept it. Since I've already become a sword sovereign, can I destroy my own cultivation? He laughed out loud and threw this matter to the back of his mind. Then, he walked back with large strides. The sword spirit was silent for a long time in the tribulation space. Finally, he murmured, since this guy became the tribulation swordmaster, when has he encountered the same thing as the other swordmasters? Or am I looking for trouble for myself? Finally, he stopped talking. When Chu Yang returned to the purple crystal's Huichun Hall, the sun had already risen. Endless rays of sunlight followed his figure and entered the purple crystal's Huichun Hall. What made him feel strange was that Chu Le, the servant who usually sat at the door and waited for him, was not present this time. When he went in, it turned out that the inside was actually full of people. He didn't know any of these people, but he could tell that there were many experts among them. These people were all dressed in yellow robes. At a glance, it was a sea of yellow flowers. I just had a meal, so this chapter is a little late. I will continue to write, but there's definitely less than one chapter left, so I'll update at 4 today. Yes, if everyone's monthly votes are good enough for me to look good in front of my wife, I'll continue to explode tomorrow. I'll do what I say. Speaking of which, when I was eating just now, I crossed my legs and shouted, "What meal? What dish? Fuck. Don't you know that I don't like to eat? Are you done? Why aren't you done? Why are you so lazy? Do you want to be beaten up?" After eating, I waved my hand, "Hurry up and clean up. If you don't listen to me, I'll beat you up. Come, don't wash the dishes first. Brew me a pot of tea first. Bring it over. Hurry up. Then, I'll sit here and happily write my story. Yes, actually, I'll just talk about these things here. Everyone knows that I'm the one who has the final say in my family. Everyone, leave some face for my wife and don't tell anyone else. Those who know my wife's phone number must be careful. Yes, you must be careful. A woman's face is important. Don't tell her about this." Chapter 8:12. Chu Feiyan had been wandering outside the Blood Pair's hall these few days, waiting for the news of the elixirs. In a crowd of people in yellow, Chu Le, who was dressed in emerald green, was serving the guests on behalf of Chu Feiyan. The first person was a yellow-clothed youth. On his chest area, there was actually a golden dragon embroidered with a golden light. However, even though this fellow was sitting down, it could be seen that he was thin and long, like a bamboo pole. Furthermore, it was a bamboo pole that was suffering from jaundice. Chu Yang dared to bet that he would admit defeat if he could get 5 kilograms of flesh after dismembering this guy. This young man's hair was actually yellow, with some green in between. Chu Yang didn't know what kind of physique he had to be able to turn his hair into such a yellowish-green withered grass. Chu Yang suddenly realized, it's autumn. This guy's 2 eye sockets were sunken, and his cheekbones were high. His cheeks were sunken, and he looked like a tuberculosis ghost who had been drinking too much. If he appeared at night with such an appearance, he would definitely be scared out of his wits. He looked like a skeleton that had just crawled out of his grave. At this moment, this skeleton-like guy had a reserved look on his face. He tilted his head in what he thought was a graceful manner. His fingers, which were like withered bamboos, were actually tapping on the table in a leisurely and elegant manner. He had an expression on his face that said, "I'm very handsome, I'm very confident, I'm very elegant, I'm very graceful." The 8 people behind him were all looking up at the sky with their hands crossed in front of their chests. Their actions were neat and uniform. Who are these people? Chu Yang stepped in and his face darkened. What are they doing? Chu Le hurriedly came over and whispered, "Big brother, they're from the Huang clan." "Huang clan?" Chu Yang said, "So they're from the Huang clan." "Ah, Huang clan, which clan is it?" Chu Le was speechless. This Huang clan, is a big clan that's second only to the Xiao clan in the whole southeast region. Big Brother actually doesn't know about it. At this moment, the young man in yellow was still sitting on the chair casually. He turned around and sized up Chu Yang. Then, he sneered and actually stretched out his finger to pick his nose. Then, he flicked his nose with his long fingernail. With a click, a lump of booger was flicked to the ground. He actually put on a reserved and fake smile. This must be Divine Dr. Chu, right? My surname is Huang. I know your surname is Huang. I'm asking why you're here. Chu Yang frowned. He tilted his head and looked at Huang Gong. Then, he looked at the pile of boogers on the ground. His face became gloomy. Seeing that Chu Yang was not polite enough to him, Duke Huang's face changed. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and endured it. He crossed his legs and said, I'm here to see Divine Dr. Chu. If I wanted to pick up girls, I wouldn't have come here. Ha ha. As he spoke, he actually thought that what he said was very humorous. He actually squinted his eyes and laughed out loud. I can't. Chu Yang waved his hand, I'm not in a good mood now. I won't treat any illness. Duke Huang, please find someone else. Not in a good mood? Why? Duke Huang asked in surprise. My mood is extremely bad when I see this thing. I've forgotten all my medical skills and medicine. Chu Yang raised his head and pointed at the pile of boogers on the ground with his foot. He said in disgust, I'm a clean freak. Duke Huang was stunned. He squinted his eyes and sized up Chu Yang for a long time. Then, he said carefully, you don't know who I am? Before Chu Yang could speak, Duke Huang laughed out loud. He was overjoyed. You actually don't know who I am? Ha ha ha. So there's someone in the southeast who doesn't know me. Chu Yang frowned and sat down on the counter. There was really no stool left. Looking at the complacent Duke Huang, Chu Yang asked lightly, You're the Dharma Supreme of the law enforcement officers? Duke Huang was stunned and hurriedly shook his head. No. He couldn't admit this. Chu Yang asked, Then, you're the Valley Master of the Medicine Valley? Duke Huang was stunned again and said, No. He still couldn't admit this. Saint Hall. Chu Yang asked again, Then, you're the number one blood pair in the world, Wei Wuyan? Duke Huang said angrily, even more so. Fuck, if I admit it, won't Wei Wuyan skin me alive? He's someone who even dares to provoke the big clans. Chu Yang asked, Then, which clan master of the big clans are you from? Duke Huang said dejectedly, No. Chu Yang snorted, Then why do I need to know who you are? Isn't your surname Huang? Why haven't I heard of anyone surnamed Huang in the big clans? Duke Huang said angrily, Although our Huang clan isn't a big clan, it's not much inferior to that clan. At least, it's stronger than your Chu clan. Chu Yang said in surprise, We're talking about your Huang clan now. Why are you dragging our Chu clan into this? If you really want to compare, why don't you compare with the commoners? Wouldn't that give you a greater sense of achievement and pride? Duke Huang was furious. What do you mean? Chu Yang waved his hand listlessly. What I mean is, send the guest off. You can go wherever it's cool and stay there. I'm a divine doctor who goes up the mountain to catch tigers. I don't sting monkeys, don't serve monkeys. Duke Huang stood up from the chair and rushed angrily to the counter where Chu Yang was sitting. His two skinny hands grabbed the counter tightly and he yelled, Fuck. You dare to look down on me, Huang Xiaoliu. You actually look down on me, Huang Xiaoliu. Chu Yang's face was full of black lines. Huang Xiaoliu. This is really a good name. I really don't know who gave him this name. Chu Le, who was originally worried, couldn't help but laugh out loud at this moment. The 8 experts of the Huang clan were all speechless. They raised their heads and looked at the ceiling. Sigh, there's really no other way. This name of young master is really, too, like that. I don't care whether you're Huang Xiaoliu or Huang Xiaoliu. Divine Dr. Chu said, I don't care what illness you have. Anyway, I can't cure you. Please leave quickly. He paused for a while and said, The yin fire in your body is burning your heart, and your kidneys are dry. You don't have more than 1 or 2 years left to live. You'd better go back home and prepare a coffin. Upon hearing this, the white-bearded elder behind Huang Xiaoliu widened his eyes and looked at Chu Yang with a face full of surprise. This young man actually saw the root of my illness at one glance. He didn't even feel my pulse. Huang Xiaoliu was dumbfounded. He stared and said, "Fuck. There's actually such a scoundrel in this world. He's even more troublesome than my master." Before he finished his words, the white-haired old man behind him had already coughed violently and interrupted him. He walked to Chu Yang and said with a face full of smiles, "Divine Dr. Chu. This, my young man, is young and impetuous, please don't take it to heart. But my young master has been sick for several years. We've traveled all over the world, but even the Medicine Valley can't do anything about it. Divine Dr. Chu, please give us a big helping hand and take a look at my young master. Our Huang clan will definitely not forget your kindness. As a big clan, when had the Huang clan ever been so humble to anyone?" But this person in front of them was obviously a troublesome person who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. And he was a troublesome person with unique skills. The Huang clan was the only descendant of the Huang clan, and he had contracted such a strange illness. This was a matter that concerned the continuation of the Huang clan's bloodline. They had finally seen a glimmer of hope and found a peerless divine doctor. If they were to offend this person, the clan head would definitely not blame the young master for offending this person, but they would definitely be in trouble. Chu Yang raised his head and looked at this white-haired old man. He saw that this person was at least a monarch-level expert. But he had lowered himself to beg for help for this youngster. Chu Yang's heart moved, and he said, "Then, you all stand aside. Let your father come to me." The white-bearded elder was overjoyed. "Thank you, Divine Dr. Chu." He turned around and whispered a few words in Huang Xiaoliu's ear. After pushing him over, the remaining 7 people stood up at the same time and stood up obediently. Chu Yang asked them to stand. But at this moment, who dared to sit down? What if they angered the divine doctor, and he didn't treat their young master anymore? Who could bear this crime? Huang Xiaoliu stood in front of Chu Yang and didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. He stretched out one hand to let Chu Yang feel his pulse. But he was still dissatisfied and nagged, "This. Divine Dr. Chu. You have to pay attention to what you say. I'm Huang Xiaoliu, and I have a nickname called Master of the Chaotic World. My name is Xia Liu, Xia as in the sunset, Liu as in the willow tree. It's a willow tree that stands gracefully in the land of the endless gorgeous sunset. It's not the despicable, shameless, and despicable Liu, and it's definitely not Huang Liu. You've misheard my name." As he was talking, Chu Yang had already raised his head and looked at him in surprise. "You actually have such a problem. You're impotent. You're impotent. In other words, you're impotent." Huang Xiaoliu's face instantly turned red and he roared, "Fuck. Can you lower your voice? Out of the 3 types, 1 type is enough to explain the problem, but you actually repeated 3 types. You. But the eyes of the white-bearded elder behind Huang Xiaoliu lit up. His white beard trembled as he said, Right, Huang Xiaoliu wailed, "Don't say that. I'm a man. I also want my face." Chu Yang frowned. He grabbed his hand and said, "This young master of yours seems to be overflowing with yin energy. His meridians are blocked, and his kidneys are overdrawn. If other doctors were to examine him, I'm afraid it would be obvious that he's overindulging in debauchery." Huang Xiaoliu flew into a rage and shouted, "Nonsense. You quacks, I'm still a virgin." Chu Yang rolled his eyes and looked at him. "Why are you shouting? Sit down obediently. Did I say that you're not a virgin?" Huang Xiaoliu said angrily, "You said that I'm overindulging. Since I'm overindulging, am I still a virgin?" Chu Yang glared at him. Then, he shouted like a bolt from the blue, "Sit properly, you motherfucker. If you shout again, I won't let you take a look." Chu Yang was so aggressive that Huang Xiaoliu immediately became depressed. "You win. All of you, come over. I'll ask about your condition." Chu Yang stared and slammed the table. The few experts of the Huang clan looked at each other and walked over. Chapter 8:13. Your young master has this problem for 8 years, right? Chu Yang snorted. Question strange pop-up window. Yes. We only realized that something was wrong 4 years ago. Then, after checking, we knew that the root cause of the problem was very long. The white-bearded elder replied. He's only in his 20s this year, right? Chu Yang snorted, that is to say, ever since. Speaking till here, he suddenly turned his head, you can't listen to these, and you can't understand them. Go back to your room to rest. Chu was listening with interest. Upon hearing that, she stood up unhappily and walked out. As she walked out, she muttered, isn't it just becoming a eunuch? Humph, you think I can't understand? Huang Xiaoliu almost shed tears of grief and indignation. Little girl, you're infuriating me to death. I'm an excellent man, excellent your head. Chu Yang slapped his little head unreservedly. You're already impotent, what's there to be excellent about? Huang Xiaoliu was filled with grief. I also don't want to. Chu Yang sighed and no longer paid attention to this seemingly arrogant but actually immature young master. He said to the white-bearded elder, your young master's illness. Although it seems that his body has been hollowed out due to excessive indulgence, in fact, it's not because of excessive indulgence. The white-bearded elder was surprised. What? This question was actually out of shock. Many doctors had been found, but all of them insisted that he was impotent due to excessive indulgence. Only the high priest of the Medicine Valley said, this illness has nothing to do with lust, but I can't do anything about it. Now, Chu Yang said it out just by taking his pulse. How could he not be overjoyed? Huang Xiaoliu's eyes were brimming with tears. All these years, he had been beaten up by his father many times. He always blamed himself for indulging in lust without self-control. He had been wronged for so many years. Now, someone finally spoke up for him. What? Huang Xiaoliu choked with sobs. He was injured, or perhaps he was ambushed. Moreover, it had happened a long time ago. At that time, he hadn't reached, cough cough. In other words, he hadn't reached the point where he could use it. But he had already been set up. And this method is known to be incurable in Chongtian, Chu Yang sighed. What technique? The white-bearded old man asked nervously. Chu Yang said with a heavy face, Yang severing yin hand. The white-bearded old man's expression changed drastically. The Yang severing yin hand was indeed infamous in the Chongtian 8,000 years ago. Even though it hadn't appeared in the Chongtian for 8,000 years, it still made people pale when they talked about it. This was because the Yang severing yin hand was the most sinister martial art in the world. It had another name, and it was even more famous. It was the Grand Severing Hand. This martial art was specifically used to damage a person's reproductive system. Once it was used, there would be no treatment for the rest of one's life. Men couldn't be masculine, and women couldn't raise their children. This extremely sinister and evil martial art was created by a fellow named Cao Wufei 8,000 years ago. This Cao Wufei was known as the Heavenly Lord of Severance. He was an eunuch, and the long period of repression had caused him to become psychopathic. After he achieved success in martial arts, he racked his brains to create this evil martial art, specifically turning men into eunuchs and women into stone women. Cao Wufei's thought was, what I can't do, no one in the world can do. Later, Cao Wufei aroused public anger. Countless experts besieged him, and he was killed. His grand severing hand also disappeared from the martial world. But he didn't expect that it would appear again 8,000 years later, yet, it just had to appear on the body of the only remaining young master in his family. The white-bearded old man and the others were all extremely furious. They were shocked and infuriated. Divine Dr. Chu, do you mean that my young master had been attacked when he was 12 or 13 years old? The white-bearded old man's face was as cold as frost, and he asked in a low voice. There's no doubt about it. Chu Yang said lightly. Then, he turned his head and asked Huang Xiaoliu, have you never gotten up? Huang Xiaoliu hung his head dejectedly. Yes, I've had this for 20 years. Besides peeing, I haven't done anything else. For so many years, it's like a ball of soft snot. I only knew about it when my family started to find a wife for me 2 years ago. Damn it, I just lay on it, and there's no reaction at all. Stop. Chu Yang was speechless, and he waved his hand to interrupt him. Then, he pondered for a while and asked, you don't have any brothers, right? Huang Xiaoliu was startled. How do you know? Then, he said, I used to have 2 brothers, but they died before I could remember anything. Chu Yang laughed. Then, is your Huang clan very powerful? Chu Yang really didn't know much about the Huang clan. The white-bearded old man's face was solemn, and his eyes were even gloomier. He understood the meaning of Chu Yang's question. These few words might contain an earth-shattering conspiracy. The white-bearded old man said slowly, "Our Huang clan has been in the upper three heavens for 2,000 years. We rose gradually from a weak clan, and reached our peak 700 years ago. We were almost on par with the Xiao clan at that time. The Xiao clan wanted to destroy us countless times, but they never succeeded. The Xiao clan was one of the dominant clans in the upper three heavens. Even with the Xiao clan's strength, they couldn't do anything to the Huang clan." But when the white-bearded old man said this, he didn't sound arrogant at all. Instead, he was full of worries and thoughts. "And then?" Chu Yang asked, "has the clan declined now?" "It's not that the Huang family has declined. It's just that in the past 300 to 400 years, accidents have been happening to the direct descendants of the Huang family. Later on, even the side branches had accidents one after another. Slowly, although the Huang family's foundation is big, the core Huang family has been withering away." As the white-bearded old man said till here, his face became more and more ugly, and he said, "Now, the young master is the only surviving direct descendant of the Huang clan. But he's also under the art of severing posterity, alas." Then, the white-bearded old man looked at Chu Yang and asked hopefully, "Divine Dr. Chu, can you cure this illness?" Chu Yang pondered. Huang Xiaoliu's illness was different from that of Shuo Xinliang and the others. This illness was real and not fake at all. It wasn't very difficult for Chu Yang to cure it, because he had many rare elixirs in his hands. But the problem was that divine Dr. Chu still wanted to get some other benefits. He frowned and pondered. Everyone thought that he was thinking about the illness, but no one knew that this guy had already thought of 40 to 50 vicious schemes in this short period of time. Cure. Chu Yang took in a breath of cold air and slowly exhaled. After everyone's hearts were in their throats, he said, "It can be cured," but, hearing that he could cure it, the Huang clan members were overjoyed. But when they heard the word "but," their hearts were in their throats again. But this kind of injury has been around for a long time, and it has become a chronic illness. Plus, this martial art is vicious and ferocious. It's really difficult to cure it completely. Chu Yang sighed. As long as it can be cured, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what price we have to pay, our Huang clan can afford it. We're also willing to pay. The white-bearded old man's eyes were full of tears, as if he had suddenly grabbed a life-saving straw when he was drowning. In heaven, everyone knew the importance of a force. The Huang family was now on the verge of extinction. Once that happened, the monkeys would scatter. Everyone would have no roots. Seeking refuge with other forces would be akin to leaving home halfway. It would be tantamount to lodging under a fence. The taste would be too unpleasant. If they didn't seek refuge, they would inevitably be nibbled away, killed, and exiled. As long as the Huang family's bloodline was still there would still be cohesion. No matter how much of a debauchee he was, at least the flag would still be raised. If it was erected, there would be a backbone. When 1,000 people gathered together, they were a force that no one dared to ignore. But when 1,000 people were separated, there would be 1,000 targets. Even a wild dog would dare to bite you. This was one of the reasons why clans were so loyal in the era of cold weapons. Because this was a main route. If the main route was broken, where would the branches go? This was the reason. So, regarding the illness of Huang Xiaoliu, the only remaining young master of the Huang clan, not only the Huang clan was anxious, but the subordinates and experts of the Huang clan were also very anxious. Now, they finally saw a glimmer of hope in the land of infinite despair. How would the Huang clan miss this chance? That was an opportunity that he would rather die than miss. This period of time will be very long. Chu Yang sighed and said, "Moreover, I have to focus on the treatment every day. At all times, I have to let him be under my eyes. As the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, the jade rabbit rises and falls. Every day, there will be a different qi circulation to concoct the medicine. Chu Yang stared at the white-bearded old man and said, "You're all martial experts. You definitely know more about the flow of qi and blood in the body than Chang are you. You should know that the rise and fall of the sun and moon, morning and evening, the flow of qi and blood in the body is different, right?" Divine Dr. Chu is right. This is indeed different, the white-bearded old man said. So, I need to adjust the flow of qi and blood at every moment for the treatment. Chu Yang said solemnly, "You can imagine how complicated and troublesome this treatment will be." The white-bearded old man sighed, "That's indeed the case, and there's a prerequisite. Your young master Bai Shao has to be completely cooperative and obedient. But from the looks of it, your young master isn't someone who knows his place. Young master will definitely be obedient," the white-bearded old man promised hurriedly. "He's obedient, but I'm not willing to." Chu Yang curled his lips and said, "Do you know how much I earn in a day? Do you know that I can't do most of the other things when he's sick? Do you know how much I'll lose? Do you know how many rare medicines I need? Do you know the price of these elixirs? Moreover, if he's a stunning beauty, it's nothing. But unfortunately, he's a tuberculosis patient with jaundice. His saliva is flying everywhere, his breath stinks, and his snot is flying everywhere. Yarrow Yarrow has to do a close examination on him. And I'm a clean freak. If it were you, wouldn't you be disgusted?" To be continued. Chapter 8:14. The white-bearded elder frowned and said awkwardly, "Then tell me, what should we do?" He thought that it was really difficult for Divine Dr. Chu to do this. It's also possible to cure him completely, but we have to make a 10-point agreement. Chu Yang said. Q no pop-up window 10-point agreement. The 8 experts of the Huang clan felt a little dizzy. Normally, there were only 3 points of agreement. Why did it become 10 points? First, Huang Xiaoliu must be obedient. If I tell him to go east, he can't go west. If I tell him to hit a dog, he can't chase a chicken. If I tell him to take off his pants, he can't pull off his clothes. He must completely obey my instructions. If he's disobedient, I'll stop the treatment at any time, Chu Yang shouted. Then, if you tell me to go east and I can't go west, can I go north? Huang Xiaoliu pouted. Get out. Damn it. I don't want to see any more. I don't want to see any more. You'll be a virgin until you die. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and shouted as he pointed his finger at the door. The Huang clan's members hurriedly apologized. After a long time, they finally appeased this bad-tempered Divine Dr. Chu. But he still pointed at Huang Xiaoliu's nose. If you dare to say no to me again, you'll get lost immediately. Huang Xiaoliu kept quiet out of fear. His arrogance when he first came in had long disappeared. Second, during the treatment period, the Huang clan has to be responsible for my losses. I don't want much. You can inquire about my daily income. If you can't be responsible, I'll stop the treatment at any time. Chu Yang squinted his eyes and said unwillingly. That's what I should do, the white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. Third, if the Huang clan is still worried, you can send guards here. But, other than ensuring Huang Xiaoliu's safety, they have to listen to my instructions. If they're disobedient, I can stop the treatment at any time, Chu Yang said. That's what I should do. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. Since I'm here, who else can I listen to? Fourth, the Huang clan has to provide the required medicinal herbs. Chu Yang said lightly, and a touch of worry appeared between his eyebrows. This isn't an additional condition. I'm afraid that the Chu clan can't get the medicinal herbs that Mr. Huang needs. So, if you can't get them or don't agree, you can stop the treatment at any time. Of course. The white-bearded old man nodded affirmatively. Fifth, don't cause trouble. Otherwise, I can. First, you are not allowed to be rude to my family. This can be terminated at any time. Seventh, this matter must be kept strictly confidential. Chu Yang's voice became serious as he said, I'm afraid that this matter is a power struggle between your big clans. If this news were to spread, I would never have a day of peace here. Once it's leaked out, I'll stop it at any time. At that time, it won't be me stopping it, but someone else stopping me. He looked at the white-bearded old man with a deep gaze and sighed, You should know how big of a risk I've taken by accepting Huang Xiaoliu. The white-bearded elder sighed and said, Divine Dr. Chu is right. Who knows how many dangers there are? Chu Yang said, so, the 8th rule is that you have to be responsible for the safety of me and my family. We can't sacrifice our family for you. Otherwise, the treatment can be terminated at any time. The white-bearded old man nodded heavily. After I go back and report to the clan master, I'll definitely give Divine Dr. Chu a clear answer. 9th rule, you have to protect my safety even more. Otherwise, the treatment can be terminated at any time. Chu Yang pretended to be sanctimonious. He kept saying that the treatment could be terminated at any time, which made the white-bearded old man feel helpless. And, I want an affirmative answer, not a clear answer, Chu Yang said. Of course, how could he not lower his head when he was under Chu Yang's roof? What's the 10th rule? Huang Xiaoliu asked curiously when he saw Chu Yang stop after saying the first rule. I haven't thought of the 10th rule yet. It'll depend on your performance in the future. If there's anything that's not good, I'll add it at any time. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Huang Xiaoliu hurriedly lowered his head. Anyway, you have the final say, right? Chu Yang said with great interest. Why don't you have the final say instead? No. You're the big brother. Big brother. Big brother Chu. Huang Xiaoliu bowed and raised his head, and said flatteringly, Big brother, you're so wise and handsome. You're so handsome that you can hold back 10,000 men. You've done so many good deeds for the world, but you've never left your name behind. You're really a first-class person in the world. This Duke Huang was really a talent. He knew how to adapt to the circumstances. Seeing that his fate was sealed, he immediately changed his tone and started to flatter Chu Yang crazily. The flattery in his words, the flattery in his expression, and the servile manner in which he bowed and bent his knees made everyone's jaws drop. Especially the experts of the Huang clan, they were even more dumbfounded. Fuck, I've watched young master grow up. I really didn't expect him to have such a side to him. He's really smooth and slick, don't flatter me. Chu Yang wasn't moved at all. He said, go now and wash yourself clean. Comb your hair, clean your teeth, change your clothes, and be an attendant in the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. Ah! Huang Xiaoliu exclaimed, Big brother, I don't have to be so miserable. Then please go back. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. I'll go, okay. Huang Xiaoliu felt very wronged. Well, help me brew a pot of tea, clean the medical hall and wipe the advertisements outside. Chu Yang crossed his legs. Huang Xiaoliu's face turned bitter. Divine Dr. Chu. How confident are you? The white-bearded elder asked cautiously. If you find the herbs, I'll be 100% confident. Chu Yang smiled slightly. I'll gradually nurse his body and consolidate his kidney water so that it won't be lost. When you find the herbs, he'll be cured immediately. Great. The white-bearded elder said excitedly, what herbs do you need? Chu Yang pondered for a while and said, to cure this disease, we need to fight poison with poison, and it must be absolute poison to attack the insidious power of the art of severing grandchildren. The amount of poison must be large enough to be equal to it. Of course, we also need some herbs that can prolong his life at any time. That's right. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly. So, for this disease, we need absolute vine, water of no life and life pangolin. These are the 10 herbs. The last one is poisonous dagger point iron cucumber. Chu Yang instructed, the first 3 herbs are the most poisonous of poisons, and they must be used. And the last one, poisonous dagger point iron cucumber, is the main ingredient. Once it's missing, the whole set of herbs will be useless. The white-bearded elder frowned. The absolute vine, water of no life and life pangolin are indeed the most poisonous of poisons. But this poisonous dagger point iron cucumber is too vicious. That's a torture instrument. Although it's highly poisonous, I've never heard of it being used as medicine. Chu Yang sternly said, you don't know about this. This is a torture tool used since ancient times to deal with adulterers. But, no one knows that the iron cucumber contains a large amount of traction water. If you want to cure the art of severing grandchildren, you must use this knife tip to pierce the iron cucumber. The white-bearded elder nodded repeatedly and was suddenly enlightened. I see, I see. It's really, the world is full of wonders. Remember, you must get these herbs within half a year, otherwise, I'll have to rearrange the supplements for his blood circulation every day. You must know that the 4 seasons are a big cycle for the blood circulation in his body. The white-bearded old man nodded repeatedly. Then, he carefully put away Chu Yang's prescription. Then, he bade farewell to Chu Yang and left the 4 elders to guard Huang Xiaoliu. He led the 4 elders back to report to the clan master and prepare to look for elixirs. Before leaving, Huang Xiaoliu hugged the white-bearded elder's thigh with tears and snot, and cried loudly, "Third granduncle. You must find the elixirs as soon as possible. Tell my father not to feel sorry for the purple crystals." I. How am I going to spend the next half a year? Seeing the 4 elders of the Huang clan leave, Chu Yang arranged for the other 4 elders to stay in the backyard. Then, he kicked Huang Xiaoliu's butt. "Stand up." Huang Xiaoliu stood up while trembling. "Qian what?" Chu Yang squinted his eyes. "Little one, if you don't want to be a eunuch forever, be more honest. I'm not interested in correcting your problems. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You have to answer truthfully." Huang Xiaoliu said humbly, "Boss, please ask." He quickly moved a stool over and said politely, "Boss, please sit." "I'll just stand." Chu Yang sat down on the stool unceremoniously. "Do you know who did this to you?" "I don't know." Huang Xiaoliu shook his head blankly. Then, he gritted his teeth. "If I knew, wouldn't I have dismembered that bastard into pieces long ago?" "You're right," Chu Yang asked again. "Then, who's the biggest enemy of your Huang clan?" "It should be the Xiao clan." Huang Xiaoliu said with uncertainty. "The Xiao clan has always been guarding against us taking over their position. But these years, we didn't really fight with each other." "Oh." Chu Yang frowned. "What about the other enemies?" "Others? Waraha, in the whole southeast region, who dares to go against our Huang clan?" Huang Xiaoliu laughed complacently. Halfway through his laughter, he saw Chu Yang rolling his eyes and looking at him. He suddenly remembered that he shouldn't be arrogant. So, he immediately stopped and said timidly, "Boss, of course, is an exception. That's not bad. Xiao clan. Xiao clan." Chu Yang quickly conversed with the sword spirit in the space. Slapping his thigh, he finally said, "I remember the legend. Back then, among the experts who besieged the Venerable of Severance, Cao Wufei, the leader seemed to be someone surnamed Xiao. Or perhaps, among the main experts, there was someone surnamed Xiao. I can't remember this legend clearly." Huang Xiaoliu was instantly furious. He gritted his teeth. "I'll go back and check on this matter." Chu Yang nodded indifferently. Then, he casually said, "I'm just saying. That's all. You don't have to take it to heart." It seemed that he didn't know that because of Huang Xiaoliu's illness, and because the Huang clan was about to have no descendants, all the Huang clan had been repressed to the point where they were about to explode. His casual words had caused such a bloody storm. As a matter of fact, Chu Yang didn't lie. Back then, among the 2 people who besieged Cao Wufei, one was surnamed Yi, and the other was surnamed Xiao. To be continued. Chapter 8:15. Book 7 Chapter 11 The tragic Duke Huang Gong. There was one less person beside Huang Xiaoliu now. Duke Huang almost went crazy and sent people to investigate what had happened that year. With the power of the Huang clan, it wouldn't take much time to investigate such things that were clearly recorded. Divine Dr. Chu also started to treat Duke Huang. He carefully prepared medicine. He used a whole catty of Coptis chinensis, 1, 5 catty of bitter bamboo roots, 2, 5 catty of bitter cauliflower, 1, 5 catty of golden castor beans, and finally 2, 5 catty of snow cliff bitter gourd. Then, he threw in a small stalk of raging blood ginseng and brewed a big pot of decoction. The decoction that Divine Dr. Chu brewed for Duke Huang was as yellow as a latrine after the rain. It weighed a total of 15 catties. After the decoction was finished, a drop of lust dragon's blood was dripped in to dilute the decoction. 3 meals a day, 2 bowls each time. There's a total of 5 bowls, and each bowl weighs half a catty. After 5 days, we'll prepare for the next course of treatment. Chu Yang frowned and looked at Huang Xiaoliu. Huang Xiaoliu's legs trembled when he saw the big pot. His calves were cramping. He took up the bowl and drank a mouthful. He only felt an indescribable bitter taste rushing into his stomach. In an instant, his stomach felt like it was filled with ice and fire. Coptis, bitter bamboo root, silver root bitter cauliflower, golden castor bean, and snowcliff bitter gourd were all things that were used to reduce internal heat. They were all things that were cold and bitter. When they were gathered together, it was the culmination of all bitter tastes since ancient times. And it was also extremely relieving internal heat. But raging blood ginseng was relieving internal heat. After eating it, one would feel hot all over and sweat profusely. The rarest thing was that this raging blood ginseng was also bitter. All these things had no effect on the treatment of Duke Huang's illness. Apart from the bitterness that made one wish they were dead, there wasn't even the slightest bit of medicinal properties left. The only thing that was useful was a drop of lust dragon's blood. But only God knew how much effect a drop of lust dragon's blood would have after being melted in this big pot of decoction. This was purely because divine Dr. Chu didn't like Huang Xiaoliu's name, appearance, and living habits, so he came up with this idea to torment him, who told this bastard to not only be impolite when he saw me, he even threw a bucket full of snot. Of course, it wasn't just punishment. Divine Dr. Chu's purpose was, the power of the Huang clan isn't small. And it's a feud with the Xiao clan? If Huang Xiaoliu were to stay here, wouldn't it be equivalent to having a group of super bodyguards? A capable fighter? Since Chu Fei Long was able to invite that person to kill him, it proved that the Yi clan had definitely come to the southeast. As long as the Yi clan sent people, how could they be simple? Although Sword Master Chu thought highly of himself and had the sword spirit as his trump card, he wasn't so arrogant to think that he was invincible. After all, the sword spirit's strength was limited by him, and it could only exert a little bit of its power. It would be no laughing matter if a high-level martial saint were to come and destroy his physical body. Moreover, this incident seemed to be another fuse. Could the heavens? Chimph. God knows what had been going through divine Dr. Chu's mind these few days. As for these medicines, after drinking these medicines, although Duke Huang's condition would be slightly improved, and there would be absolutely no harm to his life and health, taking these medicines every day was definitely tantamount to going to hell more than 10 times every day. Duke Huang plucked up his courage and took a sip. Instantly, his face twisted into an extremely weird shape. His nose was almost crooked to his ears, and his eyes were raised high. Then, silently, 2 streams of yellow soup rushed out from his nostrils. Drip, drip, drip. He fell to the ground with a thud. For a full 15 minutes, he couldn't breathe and was directly suffocated. She only regained her senses after a quarter of an hour. She took a deep breath and started to cry, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy." His tears gushed out like a broken dam. The 3 guards of the Huang clan rushed out like a whirlwind. "What are you crying for?" Chu Yang was furious. "I've painstakingly refined these medicines for you. Why are you crying? Is this a medicine?" Huang Xiaoliu pointed at the big pot painfully. "What the hell is this?" "It's bitter, it's as bitter as something." He wanted to say that it was even more bitter than gold thread, but he immediately remembered that the bitterness of gold thread and this medicine were simply worlds apart. As he cried, he vomited. Chu Yang sighed and looked at the 3 guards. "This duke of yours has never suffered any hardships since he was young." A black-faced guard smiled and said, "Divine Doctor, you're right. Our duke, after all, is the only son of our Huang clan. It's human nature for Madam to spoil him a little, but how can I treat him like this?" Divine Dr. Chu frowned and shook his head repeatedly. "Look, he's become like this after drinking a mouthful of medicine." The 3 guards were also helpless as they begged, "Godly doctor, can you make this medicinal soup sweeter?" Chu Yang was furious. "Good medicine is bitter, good medicine is bitter. It's all honey, of course, it's good to drink, but can it treat illnesses? If he can't even drink the medicine, how can he treat illnesses?" Divine Dr. Chu was furious. "The medicine is here. 1 bowl a day, 2 bowls at a time. This is enough for 5 days. I'll leave it to you. If I see him vomiting another drop of medicine, you can bring him back." After saying that, Divine Dr. Chu left angrily. The remaining 4 people of the Huang clan looked at each other. The black-faced guard gathered his courage and scooped a bowl of medicine for Huang Xiaoliu. Duke. You can drink it. I won't drink it even if you beat me to death. Huang Xiaoliu's face was full of tears. He shouted angrily, is this a medicine? Damn it, even feces doesn't taste so bad. Is this a fucking treatment? This is obviously murder. The three guards' faces immediately darkened. Feeling helpless, they advised, Sir, this good medicine tastes bitter. You try a mouthful. Huang Xiaoliu squinted, you'll know, is it really so bitter? The black-faced guard drank a mouthful of the tea in a dubious manner. Suddenly, his black face turned snow-white, and his facial features twisted into a pile. He rolled his eyes for a long time before swallowing the tea. He felt as if the 10,000-year-old ice in his stomach and the fury of a volcano were colliding together. At this moment, he wanted to cut his own throat. After a while, he still said against his will, this doesn't seem to be very bitter. Duke, for the sake of treating illnesses. You can drink it. Huang Xiaoliu only shook his head. The three guards looked at each other and walked to one side to discuss. What if Duke doesn't drink it? Pour it. Yes. The three guards walked back. Duke, drink it. Huang Xiaoliu was extremely indignant. I won't drink it even if I die. The three guards signaled each other with their eyes. They rushed forward and held Huang Xiaoliu down. One controlled his body, one opened his mouth, and the other poured the medicine into his mouth. The one who opened his mouth tapped on Huang Xiaoliu's throat and chest. Then, Huang Xiaoliu involuntarily poured the medicine into his stomach. Another bowl of it. Then, one of them still controlled Huang Xiaoliu tightly, while the other two rubbed his stomach and chest. They used their spiritual power to circulate all his meridians and blood vessels, so that the medicine could be spread to his limbs and bones as soon as possible. Huang Xiaoliu couldn't move at all. His eyes rolled back and his mouth opened. His face had turned into the color of a dead person. His throat kept making ha sounds. When the three guards finally released their hands, Huang Xiaoliu jumped up and desperately used his fingers to dig his throat, wanting to spit out the medicine. But no matter what, he couldn't spit it out at all. The three monarch-level experts had helped him to clear his digestion. Now, all the medicine had already been absorbed into his limbs and bones. How could he spit it out? Duke Huang sat down on the ground. He was heartbroken and disheartened. I won't treat it anymore. I won't treat it anymore. So be it if the Huang clan has no more descendants. The three guards were shocked. That won't do. They looked at each other and thought, we have to prevent Duke from running away at any time. This is a good idea. Looks like we'll do it this way in the future. Divine Dr. Chu appeared out of nowhere. He smiled amiably. When Huang Xiaoliu saw him, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He screamed and jumped up, hiding behind the black-faced guard. His teeth chattered, Demon, remember to use this method in the future. You have to be on guard at any time. Well, if your Duke escapes by himself, you can't blame me, Chu Yang said lightly. You have to know that the medicine can't be stopped. Once it's stopped, all the previous efforts will be wasted. The three experts agreed respectfully. They swore secretly, even if I don't sleep or rest, I have to take care of my Duke and not let him run away. I have to make sure that he doesn't miss a single drop of medicine. And, this is only for 5 days. After 5 days, you can't use this anymore. You have to start the second course of treatment. And you have to find the medicine for the second course of treatment yourselves. But these few courses of treatment are only for consolidating the meridians. It's not hard to find them, Chu Yang frowned. Divine Doctor, please tell us. The three experts agreed at the same time. Well, the second course of treatment requires some small poisons. One of you can go and find them. 15 grams of centipede whiskers, 15 tongues of 5-step snakes, 100 pairs of white-bellied bat eyes, 3,000 legs of centipedes, 50 tails of swamp lizards, 15 grams of fly wings, 10 cores of ice poison-type spiritual beasts, 3 stalks of corpse ganoderma. Chu Yang listed out more than 10 kinds of medicines as if he was familiar with them. He solemnly instructed, you must find them all within 4 days. No problem. The black-faced guard heaved a sigh of relief and patted his chest. Leave it to me. At one side, Huang Xiaoliu had already foamed at the mouth and almost fainted when he heard the names of these medicinal herbs. What are these things? So, from then on, Huang Xiaoliu lived a dark life in the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. The guards of the Huang clan were all experts. They were naturally not fools. The next day, the black-faced guard went out to find the medicine. He conveniently brought a small cup of the medicine that Huang Xiaoliu was drinking now, begging for monthly vote. Seeing that I'm going to be raped again, brothers and sisters, please support me. Chapter 8:16. After the black-faced guard went out, he first found a very famous old doctor to take a look at the medicine. The old doctor frowned and stroked his beard. After looking at the medicine for a while, he drank 1 or 2 drops. After vomiting for a while, he said with an expression as if he had seen the heavens, "Which divine doctor made this medicine? It's really amazing. He can actually boil the medicine to such an extent." The black-faced guard was stunned. "Is this medicine really useful? What's its use?" The old doctor said excitedly, "I really can't say what's the use of this medicine, but this level of boiling medicine is definitely something I've never seen in my life. Look, it's so uniform. Even with so many years of experience, I can't even taste what the herbs are in it. And the dragon and the tiger are in opposition, water and fire are of the same origin. I can only faintly feel that it has an extreme effect of strengthening the yang energy." This was true. With the sword spirit's level of boiling medicine, no one in the entire Chongtian could compare with him. But before the old doctor finished speaking, the black-faced guard had already disappeared. Hey, don't go. He's really a divine doctor, really a miraculous medicine." The black-faced guard tried his best to find the medicine for the second course of treatment. He was full of excitement along the way. Young master can be saved, the Huang clan can be saved. On the afternoon of the second day, when Huang Gong was still lying on the bed like a corpse after being fed the medicine as usual, 2 people suddenly came in. Chu Tenghu and Chu Tengjiao, big brother. "Are you here?" The 2 of them were full of smiles. "What's the matter?" Huang Xiaoliu lay on the bed weakly and rolled his eyes. "Who are you?" Chu Tenghu was stunned. "Why is there another person here? He looks like a tuberculosis ghost, as if he's already dead. Why do you care who I am?" Huang Xiaoliu vomited again and again. He only felt that there was an evil fire burning in his heart. "Why are you here?" Just at this moment, Chu Yang came out from inside. "Big brother, you've been back for a long time. We especially came here to invite you and hold a welcome dinner for you," Chu Tenghu said. "Oh." Chu Yang tilted his head and looked at the 2 of them. "What are these 2 guys thinking about?" Chu Tengjiao said enthusiastically, "Big brother, we've already booked a banquet at the Lingyun Pavilion. Please come." He laughed and sighed, saying sincerely, "Big brother, no matter what, we're brothers after all. Blood is thicker than water." He seemed to want to say something but stopped on second thought. Chu Yang understood and laughed. "You mean, you want to treat me to a meal?" "Yes," Chu Tenghu said sincerely, "Big brother, please do us the honor and give us a chance." Chu Yang had a complicated look in his eyes. He pondered silently for a long time. Then, he finally said, "Okay, I'll go." Chu Tenghu and Chu Tenghu were overjoyed, and said, "Then, we'll wait for you at the Lingyun Pavilion." The 2 of them left. "How could you agree?" Huang Xiaoliu didn't care about lying on the ground like a corpse. When he saw Chu Tenghu leaving, he jumped up and said anxiously, "Are you crazy?" Chu Yang turned to look at him. "Your 2 brothers obviously have bad intentions towards you," Huang Xiaoliu said hurriedly. His forehead was covered with sweat. "I know," Chu Yang said calmly. "Then why did you still go?" Huang Xiaoliu was stunned. "You're so concerned about me?" Chu Yang looked at him with a half-smile. Huang Xiaoliu was stunned. Then, he turned his head and spat angrily. "I'm not concerned about you. I'm just afraid that no one will treat me if you die." Chu Yang laughed loudly. But he didn't say out one sentence. "Not only do they have bad intentions, when have I ever come with good intentions? But everything has a beginning." As they were talking, another 3 people came together and hurriedly entered the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. Big brother, are you here?" They were the 15-year-old Chu Tengyun, the 3rd son of Chu Filong, as well as the 17-year-old Chu Tongxiao and the 13-year-old Chu Tongkong. The three youths still had the innocence of a child. They rushed over in a hurry, and their faces were actually steaming with sweat. "What's the matter? Why are the three of you here?" Chu Yang asked puzzledly. "Are the Chu brothers going to have a meeting today?" The three of them looked at each other. It seemed that no one wanted to speak first, and they were all urging each other. Finally, Chu Tungyun plucked up his courage and spoke first. "Big brother, you've been back for a long time. We brothers haven't sat together for a long time. How about this? Tonight, the three of us will be the host at the Purple Chi Pavilion. Let's get you drunk." The other two nodded repeatedly. Chu Yang was stunned. "What's going on? It's just a short while, and two groups of people have come to treat us." One group invited the Lingyun Pavilion, and the other invited the Purple Chi Pavilion. The Lingyun Pavilion was located in the northernmost part of Wujin town, and was a top restaurant, while the Purple Chi Pavilion was located in the southernmost part of Wujin town, and was not much worse than the Lingyun Pavilion. One was in the north, and the other was in the south. Chu Yang's gaze changed, and he finally probed. "Just now, Tung Hu and Tung Jiao came and invited me. I've already agreed. Shall we change the date?" The expressions of the three changed greatly, and Chu Tungyun blurted out, "Lingyun Pavilion? Big brother, you can't go." Then, his face turned pale, and he shut his mouth tightly. Chu Yang's body shook, and he looked at Chu Tungyun with a complicated gaze. He only felt his blood boiling. The four brothers became silent at the same time. Huang Xiaoliu looked at this and that, and finally sighed. He muttered, "The matters between the brothers are really complicated. It gives me a headache." Then he slipped away quietly, leaving the space for the brothers to talk. Seeing that Chu Yang remained silent, Chu Tungyun's face became paler and paler. Finally, he whispered, "Big brother." Chu Tongxiao and Chu Tongkong stepped forward at the same time, and whispered, "Big brother. They want to harm you." Tungyun eavesdropped on this. Chu Yang's face twitched, and he asked hoarsely, "Why?" He looked at Chu Tungyun, and his voice was hoarse. There was even some contradiction and pain. Although he didn't say it clearly, the three brothers knew that Chu Yang was not asking why Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao wanted to harm him, but why Chu Tungyun came to tell him. Chu Tungyun's immature face turned pale. His lips trembled, and he lowered his head. Then, he suddenly raised his head again. I'm brothers with my elder brother, but I'm also brothers with you. I don't want this clan to collapse. I don't want any of you to get into trouble. We're from the same root, from the same family." Chu Yang shut his mouth tightly. When Chu Tungyun said this, he only felt that his heart moved inexplicably, and he felt a sharp pain. Chu Tungyun stepped forward, raised his face, and looked at Chu Yang with a pleading look. There was panic, shame, and pleading on his face. "Big brother. Can you take a step back, please? Can you take a step back, please?" Chu Yang's heart shook. After a long time, Chu Yang said bitterly, "I also want to take a step back, but I already can't take a step back. Since I returned to the clan, I don't have any way back. If I take a step back, I'll be dead." The three youths opposite him looked gloomy. They bit their lips and lowered their heads. As the Chu clan's younger brothers, they were deeply moved by Chu Yang's words. Since their big brother returned to the clan, had he ever asked for anything? In everyone's eyes, their big brother had always been at the top, and had taken advantage of everything, but only they knew that their big brother had no choice but to fight back. That's all. After he returned to the clan, he didn't even take the initiative to fight back. Instead, he was pushed into the whirlpool of conflict by the clan. Every time, he fought back. But Chu Feilong had used his means time and time again. Until now, he had even sent his two sons to invite Chu Yang to a banquet to deal with him. The four brothers stood silently, and no one said a word. Chu Tungyun's breathing became more and more rapid. His chest couldn't help but heave up and down. Finally, his breathing became heavier and heavier, like a bellows. He struggled and said in a low voice, "Big brother, I heard that there's Yi Wubua and Yi Shisan from the Yi clan." Chu Yang's body shook. Chu Tungyun lowered his head and said with difficulty, Big brother. I know that my father and my 2 elder brothers have wronged you, but, if you, can you let them go? After saying this, the young man's 2 teardrops fell to the ground. He suddenly turned around, and walked out quickly. He didn't even pay attention to Chu Yang, Chu Tengxiao, and Chu Tengkong's calls. He buried his head and rushed out. Big brother, I'll go and take a look. Teng Yun is very emotional. Chu Tengxiao wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, he said, Big brother, you, think, more, and take care. After saying this, he pulled Chu Tengkong and rushed out. The 3 of them came and went quickly. Until the figures of the 3 disappeared, Chu Yang was still standing in his original position. His expression was complicated. After a long time, Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Facing the emptiness in front of him, he murmured, Brother, you're still young. You don't understand. I have no way to retreat. Your father also has no way to retreat. Your 2 brothers originally had thousands of paths, but they still chose a dead end. But you are making things difficult for me. Ah! He smiled bitterly. In his heart, he had already deduced most of this matter. Chu Feilong and his 2 brothers had discussed and asked them to use their status as brothers to lure Chu Yang out and make use of Yi Wubo to kill him. But this matter was overheard by the 3rd brother, Chu Tengyun. This hot-blooded youth then wanted to invite him in advance so that he could avoid this disaster. But for some reason, he didn't dare to say it out loud. Thus, there was this scene today. The youth's mood was pure and kind. He had put in a lot of effort. How would he know that his father and this big brother of his had already reached the stage where they couldn't coexist? I don't want anything to happen to any of you. Because we're from the same family. Chu Yang didn't know how many times he had heard this sentence. He had even said it himself a few times. But only today, the youth's pure and innocent face and voice had deeply touched him. Unfortunately, I can't retreat. Chu Yang shook his head slowly. He looked despondent. I can't retreat. To be continued. Chapter 8:17. Just as he was thinking, a figure flashed at the door. Sho Xinliang rushed in hurriedly with his shiny bald head. When he saw Chu Yang, he was overjoyed. Divine Dr. Chu is indeed here. In order to deceive others, Sho Xinliang had always addressed Chu Yang as Divine Dr. Chu outside. Chu Yang was shocked and said, "Why are you here today?" Sho Xinliang squinted his eyes and said, "I have an important guest who has a sudden illness. I'd like to invite Divine Dr. Chu to take a look at him. Is that okay?" Chu Yang immediately understood. To be able to make Sho Xinliang come here personally, it's probably that law enforcement master. A doctor has the heart of a parent. Saving people is like putting out a fire, Chu Yang said cleanly, "I'll go now." Then, he instructed Huang Xiaoliu to guard the door and followed Sho Xinliang out. "I'll carry you." Sho Xinliang obviously didn't want to delay any longer. "Okay. Little brother, the law enforcement master is here." Sho Xinliang lowered his voice excitedly as he carried Chu Yang on his back. "Yes, I've guessed it," Chu Yang said calmly. "I've told the law enforcement master about our matter. He expressed his doubts and even scolded me for sowing discord and suspecting the law enforcement master's pharmacist." Sho Xinliang said. "Huh?" Chu Yang was doubtful. "So, the law enforcement master is very likely to blame you when you go there this time. By then, please be magnanimous and forgive me," Sho Xinliang said worriedly. "I know," Chu Yang smiled deeply. Then, the law enforcement master's injury, little brother, are you confident? Sho Xinliang asked worriedly. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, "If that Tong Wuxin is a spy, he'll definitely lay his hands on the law enforcement master. As long as he's willing to do it, I'll be able to find out. But, if Tong Wuxin is innocent and causes us to wrongly accuse him, then there's no other way." Sho Xinliang's galloping body suddenly stopped. "What's the probability of that?" Chu Yang was silent. Then, little brother, won't you be in extreme danger this time? Sho Xinliang became anxious. "How about I send you away immediately?" Chu Yang smiled sincerely. He felt comforted for Sho Xinliang's undisguised true nature at this moment. "It's okay. Even if the law enforcement master wants to kill me, He won't use such a trivial reason, right? Besides, if we suspect the wrong person, we should be punished. What's so difficult about that? Moreover, according to our speculations, the possibility that Tong Wuxin is the traitor is 90% certain. Sho Xinliang finally felt a little relieved, and said, "Little brother, don't worry. If we're really wrong and the law enforcement master is furious, I'll protect you even if I have to risk my life." Yes. While they were speaking, they had already arrived at the law enforcement hall. Sho Xinliang put Chu Yang down. Then, the two of them walked inside side by side. Qin Baoshan had already come out to welcome them and said, "You're finally here. The law enforcement master threw a tantrum at me just now." As he spoke, he looked at Chu Yang worriedly. "Little brother, are you confident? I see that the law enforcement master is very protective of that Tong Wuxin. It's better for you to leave as soon as possible." He said these words hurriedly, quickly, and softly. Chu Yang blinked his eyes and smiled. Things have to pass, and we have to face them eventually. Some things can't be avoided. Isn't that so? Sho Xinliang and Qin Baoshan looked solemn. Behind the law enforcement hall, in a small hall. The three of them stepped into the hall. Then, they felt darkness in front of them. It seemed that the day had suddenly turned into night. Chu Yang saw a person at first glance. There was only one person in this small hall. And because of this person, it seemed that his existence had covered the entire sky, making this initial afternoon turn into night. This person was wearing a black robe and a black cloak. He was standing quietly with his back facing the door. He stood in front of the seat with his hands clasped behind his back. He raised his head slightly and looked at the words on the wall. He had a head of black hair, and there was only a lock of dazzling silver-white hair at the back of his head. This person was 8 feet tall and had a straight figure. Although his back was facing the crowd, there was naturally a kind of lofty aura just by looking at his back. He was like a towering mountain that stood quietly. Splendid southeast intercepts the torrent, vast and mighty, overturns the universe for 10,000 years, swallows the heaven and earth, and changes the season. This person in black read out the contents of the words on the wall softly with his hands clasped behind his back. He said lightly, "Sho Xinliang, do you know the contents of this word?" Although his back was facing the three of them, there was still an imposing aura when he opened his mouth. It was as if a mountain was pressing down from the sky. Sho Xinliang said carefully, "I vaguely remember that when the Dharma Supreme was patrolling the southeast, the biggest river in the southeast, Tianshui River, met with torrential rain and torrent. Many places in the southeast were affected. At that time, the Dharma Supreme used his heavenly skills to intercept the torrent, move mountains from all directions, and create the biggest lake in the heaven. That's the heavenly venerable lake. After that, the Dharma Supreme used his heavenly skills to open up the passage to the sea with one punch, and let the excess lake water flow into the sea, saving billions of lives in the southeast. This is the greatest merit in the world. After the incident, the Dharma Supreme wrote this poem. In the future, the Southeast Law Enforcement Hall will hang this poem in every hall to show our infinite reverence for the Dharma Supreme." Sho Xinliang said with fear and trepidation. However, Chu Yang's heart was almost numb from shock. Torrential rain ravaged the southeast, and the Dharma Supreme moved mountains to form a lake. Open up the passage to the sea with one punch. What kind of cultivation is this? Even if it's a fairy tale, it shouldn't be so abnormal, right? The person in black sighed and said, "Yes, the Dharma Supreme was patrolling the southeast 300 years ago, and achieved this legendary feat. This also made the reputation of the law enforcement officers even more prominent in the world. However, this is not the power of the Dharma Supreme alone, but the hard work of countless law enforcement officers." "Yes," Sho Xinliang said respectfully. "So, I don't need to say more about what the 3 words law enforcement officers represent," the person in black said lightly, "but a great dike can collapse because of an ant's nest. If the law enforcement officers suspect each other, then the painstaking efforts of the Dharma Supreme and his unparalleled achievements in the past will eventually become a thing of the past." Yes. Qin Baoshan and Sho Xinliang were sweating profusely. They knew that the law enforcement master was warning them. The little guy behind you is the so-called divine Dr. Chu Yang, right? The law enforcement master asked lightly. Yes, Chu Yang said. Haha, you dare to call yourself a divine doctor at such a young age? You even dare to point fingers at the Southeast law enforcement officers and sow discord. How should you be punished? The law enforcement master's tone was very light, but whether it was Chu Yang, Shuo Xinliang or Qin Baoshan, all of them could sense the crisis and depression in his voice. A faint murderous intent spread quietly in the room. Obviously, the law enforcement master had the intention to kill this divine doctor who appeared out of nowhere and was suspected of sowing discord. Crime? I admit that I don't, but I can be considered as having made a contribution, Chu Yang said quietly. Made a contribution? Where is the contribution? The law enforcement master said coldly. Do you have any evidence to prove that you're guilty? Chu Yang didn't give in. The law enforcement master became silent. The atmosphere in the entire room seemed to have solidified at the moment when he became silent. What I said is true evidence. The law enforcement master's voice became colder and colder. This divine doctor's pair of eyes is also the real evidence. Chu Yang sneered. To say something arrogant, my pair of eyes and one finger are unique in the whole world. Arrogant. The law enforcement master snorted lightly. Let me see what you're capable of. The meaning of this sentence was obvious. But Qin Baoshan and Shuo Xinliang's hearts were beating at the same time. They secretly complained, your back is facing us, and we can only see the back of your head. How can you see what he's capable of when he's dressed in black? Chu Yang became silent. He looked carefully at the back of the figure in black from top to bottom and said softly, Law enforcement master, you're indeed worthy of your reputation. Worthy of my reputation? The law enforcement master chuckled. How can you tell that I'm worthy of my reputation? Chu Yang said lightly, your cultivation is extraordinary. You're so young, but you still have black hair and a youthful face. There's only a lock of white hair at the back of your head. I really admire you. When he said this, even Shuo Xinliang and Qin Baoshan noticed that the law enforcement master's body suddenly stiffened. The two of them couldn't help but feel nervous. The black robe flashed, and it was as if the whole world had turned from night to day. The law enforcement master finally turned around. When he turned around, it actually gave people the feeling that there were two worlds in front of him. This was a thin face. His eyes were like an eagle's, and his whole body carried an aura that kept strangers away. A cold and ruthless aura could be clearly felt from his face. Thick eyebrows and a square face. His black hair was combed on his head. His black headscarf was the same color as his hair. His face was slightly dark, but he didn't have any beard. At this moment, his sharp eyes were staring closely at Chu Yang's face. Chu Yang only felt that his face was constantly being pricked by steel needles, and there were bursts of unbearable pain. A martial saint expert. This is the power of a martial saint expert. And he's definitely not a low-stage martial saint. Facing such an expert, Chu Yang finally heaved a sigh of relief, because you've finally turned around. You've let me see your face. All kinds of illnesses in the human body could be seen from one's face. When the law enforcement master was looking at Chu Yang was also looking at him without dodging. Is there anything else? The law enforcement master asked quietly. Law enforcement master, your forehead is full. It's commonly known as a full and round forehead. This is the sign of longevity. But Chu Yang looked at him without blinking, and said, although your face is rosy, there's a touch of darkness on your forehead. If I'm not wrong, you'll definitely have a headache every once in a while. Chu Yang said softly, although it's not fatal, it's completely bearable. After one time, it won't recur for a long time. But that feeling is probably not good. Even with your martial saint level martial power, you won't be able to suppress it. Chu Yang still looked carefully and said, no, it's not that you can't suppress it, but that you can't suppress it at all. Because once you suppress it, the injury will spread and endanger your brain. The law enforcement master didn't express his opinion. His eyes were as deep and cold as a deep pool of water. Without moving, he said lightly, is there anything else? Begging for monthly votes. Sister Feng has returned to her parents' home. Tonight, I'll work overtime to write more chapters. I'll continue to work hard. It might be a little late. Chapter 8:18. Part 7 Chapter 14 Beyond Expectation. There are more. Chu Yang said with certainty, and there are too many. The law enforcement master said calmly, continue. Chu Yang laughed and said, then I'll say one more thing. Law enforcement master's face is a little dark. It seems that you have a normal complexion. However, dare I ask, your complexion wasn't like this decades ago, right? The law enforcement master looked at Chu Yang. His eyes were as sharp as ever, but he didn't say anything. Generally speaking, in the process of cultivation, a martial artist will undergo a few rounds of cleansing. After reaching the saint level, one will be able to maintain one's youthful appearance. This is because all the impurities in one's body will be gone, and one will be able to connect the bridge of heaven and earth in one go. If you're willing, you can even maintain your 30 to 40 years old appearance until the last moment of your life. After the martial saint level, the supreme martial artist can even rejuvenate the body. Chu Yang smiled. Of course, at that time, it will be up to each person to decide. Moreover, people above the saint level don't have many requirements for their appearance. However, the law enforcement master's expression is definitely not normal. Instead, it should have become tender and white after the saint level cleansing. It wasn't until he suffered some kind of injury that his face turned black. Chu Yang said frankly and with assurance, although this kind of injury only shows that your face turns black, there must be some blockage in your meridians. The law enforcement master's expression remained unchanged. She just stared at him. However, the murderous aura in the air had already dissipated without a trace. Only that oppressive feeling remained. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that he had finally passed the first hurdle. But the second hurdle would test his true level. As expected, the law enforcement master said in a deep voice, you do have some ability. Although it's too exaggerated to say that you're invincible in the heavens, you're already worthy of being called a divine doctor. However, this is still not enough. I know that this isn't enough for the law enforcement chief today. However, it's enough for me to have a foothold in this heavenly layer, or even in this flat mountain ridge, or even the entire southeast region. Chu Yang smiled lightly. The law enforcement master closed his eyes and said, but it's not enough. Chu Yang smiled elegantly and said, since it's not enough, may I ask the law enforcement master to extend your hand and let me take your pulse? The law enforcement master looked at him for a while and said in a deep voice, do you know the consequences of feeling the pulse? Chu Yang said proudly, if the law enforcement master didn't want to kill me right from the start, I wouldn't have been able to kill you. In that case, I really have no interest in taking your pulse. The law enforcement master narrowed his eyes. Oh. Chu Yang smiled and said, law enforcement officers are indeed the masters of the heavens and take care of all the injustices in the world. However, I have a defensive technique that is enough for me to conquer the world. It has nothing to do with me. He chuckled. However, I can't bear the crime of sowing discord within the law enforcement officers, so I can only force a duck onto a perch. Let's clear this accusation first. As for the truth, I dare not speak nonsense. The law enforcement master smiled slightly and said, oh? What do you mean? Chu Yang said straightforwardly, as long as my medical skills can be recognized. Then, even if all the law enforcement officers are dead, what does it have to do with me? Upon hearing this extremely unpleasant sentence, the law enforcement master was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed loudly. This sudden laughter gave Shuo Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, who were worried about Chu Yang, a huge fright. Their hair almost stood on end. The law enforcement master stepped forward and came to Chu Yang. He said, follow me. The three of them followed behind him and entered the small hall at the back. The law enforcement master smiled and said, sit, sit. Xinliang, go and make tea. After a smile, the sky cleared up immediately. Shuo Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were instantly overjoyed. But Chu Yang knew that his crisis was far from over. Although the law enforcement master's attitude was cordial, the sudden change still made it ambiguous. But Chu Yang had something to rely on. Chu Yang's reliance was a sentence that Sho Xinliang had once said. 12 years ago, the law enforcement master chased after a martial saint. Although he succeeded in killing the martial saint in the end, he was also badly injured and almost died. There was a lot to be done with these words. A martial saint expert had the cultivation to heal himself. Ordinary injuries would be healed in a few days. Even if his muscles and bones were injured, it wouldn't be a big deal because his cultivation was high. To be able to injure himself so badly that he almost lost his life. That was an injury that even a saint-level cultivator could do nothing about. Since it was so serious, it must have hurt his foundation. Since his foundation was hurt, how could there be no repercussions? The more difficult it was for a person to get injured, the more serious the injury would be once he suffered an injury that he couldn't heal himself. Not long after, Sho Xinliang served the tea. Each of them had a cup. The fragrance of the tea rose in spirals, and the atmosphere instantly became harmonious. The law enforcement master picked up the teacup with one hand, and the lines on his face became gentler. He said, "Divine Dr. Chu, please." Chu Yang said, "You don't have to be so polite." He also picked up a cup. The law enforcement master sniffed the fragrance of the tea and said, "Good tea." He drank a mouthful, closed his eyes and savored the aftertaste. Then he said, "Divine Dr. Chu, you may not know my name. I'm Han Xiaoran. This name is a little soft, so I won't mention it easily. But I'll never forget it. Because this is the name that my mother gave me." His face seemed to be a little blurred in the steam. Chu Yang said softly, "Your mother must be a talented woman." The law enforcement master, Han Xiaoran, gave a nostalgic smile and let out a long sigh. He said disappointedly, "My mother has left me, for more than 1,300 years. But every time I write my name on the paper, I'll remember the scene when my mother held my hand and taught me how to write my name. My heart will suddenly soften. So, I've been a law enforcement officer for many years. But I'll always be lenient to those who are filial to their mothers and have committed crimes because of filial piety. The law is heartless, but people have feelings." Han Xiaoran sighed deeply. Who doesn't have parents, wife and children? We law enforcement officers are not afraid of blood debts, but we must have a clear conscience. If there's a day when your soul returns to heaven, don't regret it before you die. As he said, he looked at Sho Xinliang intentionally or unintentionally. Obviously, this sentence was meant as a warning. Chu Yang was in awe of him. Chu Yang could tell that Han Xiaoran's words were absolutely from the bottom of his heart. No wonder his prestige was so high in the southeast region. You must have a clear conscience. If there's a day when your soul returns to heaven, don't regret it before you die. These words had really struck a chord with Chu Yang. Sho Xinliang was also shocked. He stood up and said, "I'll definitely remember the law enforcement master's teachings." Han Xiaoran nodded slightly. He pressed his palm down and motioned for Sho Xinliang to sit down. He said a little sadly, "It's a pity that law enforcement officers have become more and more powerful in the past thousands of years. But now, how many of them are able to do things with a clear conscience? The entire world is filled with a foul atmosphere." He sighed deeply and said, "I'm in charge of the southeast region, and this is my duty. I can only do my best to build up the southeast region. As for the others, haha." He smiled and said, "We've digressed from the topic. Well, that Tong Wuxin was recommended to me by the third master of the Shi clan, Shipotian. Tong Wuxin had lost his father when he was young. His widowed mother had raised him up. Although Tong Wuxin himself was unbearable and had a bad reputation of being a heartless killer, he had done his best for his mother and was extremely filial to her. Because of his filial piety and his excellent medical skills, I accepted him into the southeast region." He looked at Chu Yang quietly. "Divine Dr. Chu, do you understand what I mean?" Chu Yang thought for a while and said, "I'm slow-witted. I don't fully understand." Han Xiaoran appreciated his frankness very much. He smiled and said, "The law enforcement officers have their own doctors, and they're all the family members of the law enforcement officers. They're selected by the headquarters and sent to the Medicine Valley to learn medicine. When they return, they'll be assigned to different places. So, The law enforcement hall doesn't allow external doctors. Chu Yang was stunned. Then why? Han Xiaoran smiled. That year, the doctors were nervous. There was chaos in the southeast region, and the law enforcement officers suffered heavy casualties. I had to deal with two martial saints at the same time. I had no time to spare. So, I accepted Shaposhan's recommendation. When I came back with serious injuries, it was Tong Wuxin who tried his best to treat me. And, haha, I stayed. Firstly, I've also thought about whether or not. So, I decided to wait and see. Secondly, I intentionally owed Shapotian a favor. Yes, but after so many years, some of my thoughts have already faded. Han Xiaoran looked at Chu Yang. Do you understand now? He said it very vaguely, but Chu Yang already understood what he meant. It wasn't that he didn't have any doubts about Tong Wuxin. Or it could be said that he didn't have his guard up against the She clan. And what he said now wasn't because he wanted to confide in Chu Yang, but to further exert pressure on Chu Yang. But although Chu Yang understood, he still didn't understand where the pressure came from. He could faintly tell that this Tong Wuxin didn't seem to be so simple. Han Xiaoran looked at Chu Yang lightly. After a while, he stretched out his wrist and said, "Divine Doctor, please feel my pulse." Chu Yang didn't know why, but when he looked at Han Xiaoran's arm, he actually felt his heart become heavy. He took a deep breath and said, "Since that's the case, I'll try my best to check it." He stretched out his finger and placed it on Han Xiaoran's wrist. Then, he closed his eyes and looked solemn. The power of the sword spirit carried out a comprehensive check on Han Xiaoran's body at this moment. Chu Yang's face slowly became heavy and ugly. Even he himself did not expect that the diagnosis this time would be such a result. Han Xiaoran looked at his face and smiled. "Divine Dr. Chu?" Chu Yang let out a breath and said, "What an ingenious method." Han Xiaoran laughed. "I'm best friends with the great elder of the Medicine Valley." After a moment of silence, Chu Yang said, "It turns out that the law enforcement master also knows something." Fourth update. Begging for votes. Chapter 8:19. Han Xiaoran smiled lightly and said, "That year, I first killed the 5th stage martial saint, Cheng Morfeng, and then captured the 8th stage peak mad blade poison saint, Nan Kongyun. My internal organs were severely injured, and my head was shaken. Furthermore, I was inflicted with Nan Kongyun's unique poison technique, which penetrated deep into my internal organs. It was Tong Wuxin who treated my injuries, and after that, I became ill. That invisible poison couldn't be removed completely, and I need to be treated once a year. Until now," he smiled faintly and said, "that kind of feeling is not pleasant." Chu Yang said in surprise, "Invisible poison? You're saying that your poison is invisible?" Han Xiaoran's body shook violently, and he suddenly straightened up. His eyes were cold, and he looked at Chu Yang without speaking for a long time. Then he said heavily, "What do you mean?" Chu Yang pondered for a moment and asked, "Did the great elder of the Medicine Valley also say that this is invisible poison?" Han Xiaoran's face turned cold. He took a deep breath and said, "You mean, this isn't invisible poison?" Chu Yang was silent for a moment and said, "Poison is something that makes people pale in fright. It's also impossible to guard against experts. But, the scariest part of poison is that it's used, not the poison itself." Han Xiaoran's face was cold and stiff. He sat stiffly and didn't speak. Head Deacon Fa went to chase after Nan Kongyun, so he naturally knew about Nan Kongyun's invisible poison. Therefore, I don't believe that Chief Enforcer Fa will go over without any preparations. Chu Yang said softly. Han Xiaoran's eyes froze, and he said in a low voice, "That's right. To deal with the Mad Blade Poison Saint, if one wasn't prepared and didn't have the confidence to dodge his poison technique, one would only be courting death. When I went there that year, not only was I equipped with the antidote personally given by the Dharma Supreme, but I also had the all-dispelling pill from the Medicine Valley. Besides, I was also wearing the purple silk clothes." Chu Yang said, "Head Deacon Fa forgot the most important thing, which is that you're also carrying the cultivation of a peak martial saint." Han Xiaoran didn't speak. He had already said that he had captured Nan Kongyun, who was an 8th stage peak martial saint. Then, Wouldn't he be at least an 8th-stage martial saint? As far as I know, even if a martial saint doesn't have such tight protection, as long as one's cultivation is used, no matter whether it's invisible poison or visible poison, it's useless. Chu Yang said. Han Xiaoran was silent for a long time before he said, "You're right. But you were poisoned." Chu Yang coldly emphasized. This sentence was very ordinary, but it was a conclusion. Yes, I was poisoned. Han Xiaoran stood up and paced slowly. His face was as cold as iron. At this moment, he seemed to be wearing an ice mask. He said slowly, "When I came back, I felt discomfort all over my body. I didn't consider that it was poison at that time, because I'm confident that even if Nan Kongyun used poison during the battle, he wouldn't have succeeded. However, after Tong Wuxin diagnosed me, he said that it was an invisible poison. Moreover, all the symptoms were the same as Nan Kongyun's invisible poison. At that time, I had captured Nan Kongyun alive. Under torture, Nan Kongyun investigated for me and confirmed it without a doubt. It is indeed an invisible poison." Han Xiaoran smiled and said, "But there's no antidote for invisible poison. That's why you can only rely on Tong Wuxin to heal you," Chu Moyang said. "That's right. That's right. From then on, your invisible poison started to take root in your body. Every year, it would break out," Chu Yang continued. Han Xiaoran stood with his hands behind his back and said coldly, "That's right. So, every year when it breaks out, it's Tong Wuxin who suppresses it for you," Chu Yang pressed on. Sho Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, who were at the side, were sweating profusely as they listened to the conversation between the two of them. Both of them felt that the atmosphere in the room was becoming more and more oppressive and ghastly. They almost couldn't breathe, as if they would faint from suffocation at any time. "That's right." Han Xiaoran put his hands behind his back and turned his back to Chu Yang. But the joints of his hands were already a little white. "So, over the years, your skin color became darker. But as a chief enforcer and a man, you didn't notice it at first. Or, you were only reminded by me now." Chu Yang's voice was indifferent. "That's right," Han Xiaoran said again. "So, one day, your hair turned from completely black to a touch of silver, and this touch of silver can't be removed. And, if I'm not wrong, your scalp under this touch of silver is already necrotic. This silver hair doesn't grow from your scalp, but directly from your brain," Chu Yang said quickly. "Everything you said is right." Han Xiaoran stood upright and motionless. "Ever since you got injured, your cultivation hasn't improved at all, right?" Chu Yang asked. "No, there are still some signs of it slipping," Han Xiaoran said. "A martial saint expert is already considered to be at the peak. You fought with 2 martial saints consecutively within a year, but you didn't have any enlightenment." Chu Yang asked again. "Yes." Han Xiaoran was very straightforward. "I had a state of mind, enlightenment, but I couldn't make any progress." "So you once suspected," Chu Yang was silent for a while and said, "you once went to the great elder of the Medicine Valley to verify it." "Yes," Han Xiaoran admitted. "What did the great elder of the Medicine Valley say?" Chu Yang asked. Han Xiaoran was silent. After going one round, he still came back to this question. But compared to the question at the beginning, whether it was the state of mind or the atmosphere, it was completely different. This time, this question was filled with murderous intent. Han Xiaoran was silent for a long time before he slowly said in a low voice, "At that time, he said that this was like an invisible poison, but he didn't know this poison, and he couldn't cure it." Chu Yang frowned and asked an irrelevant question, "Is the great elder of the Medicine Valley and the high priest the same person?" "No," Han Xiaoran replied lightly. "Yes," Chu Yang pondered. The two of them, one sitting and the other standing, were both in deep thought. No one said anything. The atmosphere in the room fell into a dead silence. Sho Xinliang and Qin Baoshan felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles, but they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. At this point, the truth was on the verge of being revealed. After a long time, Han Xiaoran turned around gently. His face was still calm and his eyes were still deep. He looked at Chu Yang deeply and asked, "Divine Dr. Chu, what do you think?" Chu Yang smiled bitterly. It was Chu Yang's original plan to stir up trouble here. It was Chu Yang's ideal goal to make use of the Southeast law enforcers to deal with the She clan. But there was a prerequisite for this goal. The law enforcer must not have any internal injuries. Then, Chu Yang would use this as a pretext to make a fuss and use a despicable means to achieve his goal. But now, he only felt sad. Because after he met Han Xiaoran, although the other party had always had murderous intent towards him, his integrity and toughness from the bottom of his heart made Chu Yang respect him. If Tong Wuxin really wasn't a spy, Chu Yang even intended to let this matter go. He could use endless despicable means to achieve his goal and achieve his expectations, but there was a psychological bottom line and prerequisite. He would only do this when dealing with despicable people and enemies. Facing an upright and righteous law enforcer like Han Xiaoran, an emotionless law enforcer, a filial son who still cherished his mother 1,300 years after her death, and an elder whose character was worthy of respect, Chu Yang couldn't bring himself to do this. However, the world was just so bizarre. Just when Chu Yang was about to give up, things took a turn for the worse. Everything was developing according to Chu Yang's expectations. It was impossible for him not to make use of it. What made him sad was that he couldn't cure Han Xiaoran's injury now. And Han Xiaoran was obviously a straightforward person who would rather break than bend. And after such a long time, he no longer cared about life and death. He would never accept Tong Wuxin's threats, and would never accept Tong Wuxin's kindness. Once it was revealed, Tong Wuxin would definitely die. The battle between the She clan and the law enforcer would definitely start. Han Xiaoran would definitely die. Divine Dr. Chu? Han Xiaoran smiled and looked at Chu Yang. He said softly, "I'm waiting for your answer." "It would be a pity if the law enforcer were to die," Chu Yang said softly. Everyone wasn't stupid. Just this sentence alone was enough for them to understand. Shuo Xinliang and Qin Baoshan's faces suddenly changed. They stood up and stared at Chu Yang, trembling all over. "Yes. I understand now." Han Xiaoran's face didn't change. He walked slowly back to his seat and sat down. He stared at the green tea and said in a low voice, "I, Han Xiaoran, started learning martial arts when I was young. At the age of 23, I became an emperor. At the age of 15, I became a monarch. It took me 1,200 years to reach the peak of the saint level. I'm only one step away from the supreme level." His words were heavy, and so were the others. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. What kind of genius is he to become an emperor at the age of 23? It only took him 42 years to become a monarch from an emperor. But with such aptitude, it took him 1,200 years to reach the peak of the saint level from a monarch. Han Xiaoran's face relaxed. He poured himself a cup of tea and said, "I became a law enforcer at the age of 30. I've killed 17,833 emperor-level villains, 150 monarch-level villains, and 107 saint-level villain. No one escaped, and no one was wronged." He laughed. "As a law enforcer, I can't avoid killing people. But I have a conscience book. Every time I kill a person, I record it down. It's clear what crime they committed and why they were killed. Even after killing, I still have to investigate. For 1,200 years, I haven't killed anyone wrongly. My heart is at ease." Han Xiaoran smiled faintly. Shuo Xinliang said in a hoarse voice, Director, you." Han Xiaoran sat still. He flicked his sleeves and sneered proudly, "I'm saying all this to say, I, Han Xiaoran, have a clear conscience. I'm not ashamed of anything. I can be dignified and unrestrained in the heavenly court. I can also face the king of hell in the netherworld." He sneered, "Tong Wuxin wants to use such means to make me lower my head. You also have to persuade me to bear with it for the time being. Ha ha. It's fine before I know. But now that I know, how can I, Han Xiaoran, be someone who can be controlled by others?" Chapter 820. Upon hearing this, Shuo Xinliang's face was full of despair. Qin Baoshan's face was also gloomy. They had long known about Chief Enforcer Minute Fa's unyielding temper, and wanted to use his unyielding temper to expose this conspiracy. But they never expected that after exposing the conspiracy, the price they had to pay was Chief Enforcer Minute FA's life. If they had known this earlier, they would rather die than do this. Chu Yang was shocked. He had a clear conscience in his life, and he had no qualms about looking up to the heavens and looking down to the earth. In the heavenly court, I can be dignified and unrestrained. In the netherworld, I can also face the king of hell. What an upright life. Do I really have to watch such a good man die? How pitiful was that? But I can't expose my identity. Chu Yang's heart was conflicted. Qin Baoshan sighed deeply and said, Chief Enforcer Minute FA, please reconsider. Chu Yang sighed and said, Chief Enforcer Minute FA's temper is really too unyielding. Han Xiaoran smiled and said, who doesn't yearn for life when death is near? For so many years, those who killed the Chief Enforcer under my command all begged for mercy when they were about to die. Why? It's just because of this mortal world. I'm not an exception, he said quietly. But living depends on how you live. Dragging out an ignoble existence and living with a clear conscience are two different things. I've lived for more than 1,300 years with a clear conscience. Do I have to be restrained and listen to other people's orders at my last moment? What a joke. Even if it's a conspiracy, it's still not possible. Han Xiaoran picked up his teacup and said, tomorrow, I'll rush back to the southeast headquarters and report to the Dharma Supreme. I'll completely clean up the southeast. Since Tong Wuxin dared to lay his hands on me, he definitely won't let off the others. Maybe some people have already started to work for him under his coercion. In the long run, won't the southeast belong to the Chief Enforcer Minute FA become the world of the Shi clan? His expression was cold and hard as he said, the Shi family secretly sent people down for 3 days and interfered in the battle at the Lake of Despair. After they returned, I suggested that they be punished, but they were covered up. Me. This time, the Shi family won't have it easy in my hand. Sho Xinliang said, Lord Sho Fa, this matter shouldn't be rushed. In my opinion, since Divine Dr. Chu can detect it, he might be able to treat it. If Chief Executive FA fully recovers, then we can hide in the dark and pretend that we don't know anything. With the smallest price, we can completely eliminate the enemy. This lowly one believes that this is a foolproof plan. He raised his head. If we have to pay the price of Head Enforcer FA's precious body to eliminate the traitors, then in the future, our entire southeast, without Head Enforcer FA, what will happen? This humble one's heart chills just thinking about it. Han Xiaoran smiled and said, Divine Dr. Chu can see it, but I didn't ask if it can be cured. Do you find it strange? Sho Xinliang nodded. Han Xiaoran said, if Divine Dr. Chu could cure him, he wouldn't be deliberately mystifying at this time. So, I decided not to ask so as not to embarrass Divine Dr. Chu. But the two of you insisted that I make it clear. Sho Xinliang was in despair at once. He looked at Chu Yang pleadingly and said, Little brother, is Head Enforcer FA's injury really incurable? Chu Yang pondered. Seeing him pondering, Sho Xinliang's eyes lit up and revealed a hopeful look. This poison of Head Enforcer FA isn't an invisible poison, but a shadowless poison. Chu Yang pondered and said, although the shadowless poison isn't as cruel as the invisible poison, it's a kind of mixed poison. In the initial stage of the attack, it's exactly the same as the invisible poison. So, it's suspected to be a fake. This poison should be directly implanted into the body during the treatment. Because of this, it's particularly difficult to treat. And after a long time, the brain has already begun to rot. Generally speaking, it's a terminal illness. In this case, even Tong Wuxin's annual treatment can't be delayed for too long. It definitely won't be delayed for more than 5 years. So, if there's any conspiracy, it must be within 5 years. Is there no hope at all for Head Enforcer FA? Sho Xinliang asked in despair. Chu Yang pondered and said, actually, there's still a way to treat Head Enforcer FA's injury. But there's no such way. What way? Sho Xinliang was shocked. The first way is the heavy pill of the Tribulation Sword Master. Chu Yang frowned and said, if there's a heavy pill, Head Enforcer FA can not only recover, but also improve his martial power. Han Xiaoran smiled and said, Divine Dr. Chu's words, make me excited. But it's equivalent to not saying anything. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. The second way is to use the force of extreme yin, extreme yang, extreme evil and extreme poison to completely suppress this shadowless poison. Then, a supreme martial artist will use a pure martial art to open the bridge between heaven and earth and force the shadowless poison out. Because the poison has already entered the brain and infected the heart meridians. Except for the supreme martial artist's ability to control it, no one below the level of a supreme martial artist can do anything about it. Moreover, Head Enforcer FA is already a martial saint. No one below the level of a supreme martial artist can open his meridians. Chu Yang said. Supreme martial artist, we have a few head enforcers. If it really doesn't work, Lord Dharma Supreme won't watch the head enforcer die so young. But those 4 heavenly treasures, the power of extreme yin, the power of extreme yang, the power of extreme evil, and the power of extreme poison, what are they? Sho Xinliang asked. Han Xiaoran sighed sadly and said, there's no such way. Why? Sho Xinliang and Qin Baoshan asked at the same time. The power of extreme yin is the mysterious ice jade paste of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme yang is the mysterious yang jade marrow of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme evil is the evil illusion mysterious jade of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme poison is the heaven poison jade of the great miracle medicine. Han Xiaoran laughed and said, the mysterious ice jade essence has always only existed in legends. It's said that many years ago, the Diwu clan, which is a vassal of the Zhuge clan, once got the mysterious jade essence ginseng, but there's no evidence. So, it was left unsettled. There's a piece of mysterious heaven divine essence in the headquarters of the head enforcers. Other than that, no one has seen the others in the past 10,000 years. Sho Xinliang lowered his head as if he had lost his parents. It was more difficult to find these 4 elixirs than to find the master of the tribulation sword. At least, there was a real master of the tribulation sword. But these 4 elixirs had always only existed in legends. Whether they really existed or not was still uncertain. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, actually, the head enforcer, Mr. Fa, said too much. If the treatment of the shadowless poison requires 4 kinds of mysterious ice jade essence ginseng, then it's overestimating the shadowless poison. It only needs the accompanying creatures of the mysterious ice jade essence ginseng. For example, the profound ice jade core that comes with the profound ice jade paste, the profound yang jade core that comes with the profound yang jade essence, the evil illusion jade core that comes with the evil illusion profound jade core, and the heaven poison jade core that comes with the heaven poison jade crystal. Although Chu Yang said so, everyone still felt depressed. What's the difference between finding these 4 elixirs and finding those 4 elixirs? It's also as difficult as ascending to heaven. Han Xiaoran was silent for a while and said, illusory means that this is fate. Since this is the case, what I can do is to perish together with it. When he said the words perish together, his face was calm, but he paused after every word. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, actually, Mr. Fa, you don't have to do this. I don't have the ability to cure your illness for the time being, but it's still possible to suppress it for a while. At this moment, he finally made up his mind to help Han Xiaoran, not for other reasons, but for that sentence, if you have a clear conscience in your life, don't regret when you're about to die. Why should he care so much when facing such a man? Sho Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were both overjoyed. Sho Xinliang rushed over and grabbed Chu Yang's hand. His eyes were filled with tears. Little brother, you, little brother. He kept saying little brother, but his heart was moved and he couldn't say anything. Han Xiaoran looked at Sho Xinliang's moved expression and sighed softly. But his eyes were moist. A trace of warmth slipped from his eyes. His face also became gentle. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, I can use the acupuncture technique to seal the decayed part at the back of the head and pierce the heart meridian to seal the lock. Then, I can supplement it with medicine to put it to sleep. Finally, I can use extreme cold to suppress it. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. This method can guarantee 10 years of health. But, if I use it again after 10 years, it can only guarantee 5 years. If I can't find the tribulation swordmaster and the 4 miraculous medicines after 20 years, there's nothing I can do. Han Xiaoran smiled contentedly and said, I'm already satisfied with 2 years of time, let alone 20 years. A real man only needs to be carefree and do what he wants to do. 1 day is enough. He stood up and bowed deeply to Chu Yang. He said solemnly, I'm grateful for your kindness to grant me 20 years of life. Chu Yang nodded and took out an antique necklace. It looked like it had been worn for a long time as it was rusty. Below the necklace, there were 2 small jade plates. Once they were separated, they immediately changed. One of them was filled with fog and chilliness, the other was filled with heat waves. Chu Yang ordered the sword spirit to make it. With the sword spirit's ability, it was easy to make such an antique necklace. It looked like it was excavated from an ancient tomb thousands of years ago. The eyes of Sha Xinliang and the other 2 lit up at the same time. Han Xiaoran was shocked. Xian Ice Jade. Xian Yang Jade. Yes. Chu Yang said softly. He looked at the jade pendants with infinite preciousness and said, these 2 jade pendants were hung around the neck of a skeleton in the cave when I accidentally fell into the cave and obtained the inheritance of the medical book. I've always regarded them as treasures and have never shown them to anyone. As he said, he handed the necklace over. Deacon Fa, wear this necklace to protect your heart meridian. Although it can't expel poison, it can suppress the traceless poison. Then, disperse your cultivation. With my acupuncture, you'll be safe for 10 years. Han Xiaoran was touched and said, this is a priceless treasure. I'll accept your gift. How can I repay you? He did not decline pretentiously, nor did he hypocritically decline. Instead, he generously accepted it. Chu Yang smiled, Deacon Fa, if you feel apologetic, I also have something that I need your help with. Han Xiaoran's face turned serious and he said, Divine Dr. Chu, please say it. Chu Yang smiled and said, someone has invited me to a banquet tonight. I'm afraid that my life will be in danger if I go. But I can't not go. Deacon Fa, you'll be my guest. Take it as the fee for this visit. We're even. Han Xiaoran laughed and said, since you want to drink, I'll accompany you to drink to your heart's content tonight. Chapter 821. Although Han Xiaoran said so, he knew in his heart that he owed Chu Yang too much. But since Chu Yang didn't claim the credit, Han Xiaoran thanked him profusely, which would make him seem like a stickler for formalities. Friends should only be made in the future. It was better not to say anything than to say it now. So, he only remembered it in his heart and didn't say anything. He only changed the way he addressed them to elder brother and little brother to show that they were friends despite the difference in age. Sha Xinliang and the others knew the weight of Han Xiaoran's elder brother and little brother. They looked at Chu Yang with joy in their eyes. Chu Yang's heart was moved. Looking at the three's eyes, he suddenly felt warm. This kind of feeling had never arisen since he separated from Jiyu Duxing and the others. Law Enforcement Master, I'm very honored to be called little brother by you, Chu Yang smiled. Han Xiaoran was silent for a while and said, for so many years, ever since my brother disappeared and turned into a midnight dream, I, Han Xiaoran, have never called anyone brother. Law enforcement officers have great responsibilities, and they can't form cliques. Han Xiaoran smiled bitterly. The human heart needs to be comforted. Even a heart of stone needs to be soft at times. This is a human need, not a transaction of interests. Han Xiaoran said in a low voice, just like how little brother didn't want to suppress it for me at the beginning, because you clearly know how much trouble you'll get into. But in the end, I still resolutely took action. It's not because I, Han Xiaoran, have deep feelings for you, nor because I, Han Xiaoran, have promised you wealth and glory. It's just because I, Han Xiaoran, have been upholding justice for 1,200 years. This recognition is conscience, Han Xiaoran said seriously. Especially the last word conscience. What I, Han Xiaoran, value the most in my life is conscience. So, for this word, I, Han Xiaoran, am willing to make friends with you. Han Xiaoran smiled gently. Little brother, you've seen the part of my heart that outsiders can't see the most. And I've also seen your pure heart. You didn't save me because of my power, and I didn't make friends with you because of your medical skills. So, if you don't mention the price, I won't mention it either. Han Xiaoran said, when making friends, firstly, it's pleasing to the eye, and secondly, it's in the heart. There's no point in talking too much, but a cup of wine is enough. Well said. These words made Chu Yang radiant with joy. Elder brother, tonight I will drink with you till we're drunk. Han Xiaoran nodded and smiled. Who dares to deal with little brother? Sho Xinliang asked anxiously. I'm ashamed to say this. Chu Yang explained the whole matter, including his own background, the conspiracy back then, his current situation, and the Yi clan's intervention. A cold light flashed across Han Xiaoran's eyes, and he said, Yi Wubo? Yi 13. Chu Yang smiled and said, You know this person? Han Xiaoran was silent for a while before he said, Yi Wubo is the 13th brother of the current clan master of the Yi clan. He's a gloomy and resourceful person. He always hides in the dark to scheme. I didn't expect him to be the mastermind behind this matter. He pondered for a moment and said, It seems that the Yi clan has great ambitions. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, It doesn't matter if the Yi clan is powerful or what their conspiracy is. But this matter involves me, so I won't bother about them. Han Xiaoran said, Little brother, you're very courageous. He pondered for a while and said, I'll take on this matter for you. But, you have to be mentally prepared. That is, I'll take on the small part of the Yi clan for you. If this matter really involves the overall situation of the Yi clan, or if there's any long-term plan, and supreme martial artists are mobilized in the end, I won't be able to take it on. So, we have to be fully prepared when we do things. Han Xiaoran's words were very honest. Chu Yang also understood what he meant. Han Xiaoran could take on anyone below the level of a supreme martial artist. But if a supreme martial artist were to take action, Han Xiaoran could only pay with his life. But this was only the worst-case scenario. In fact, Han Xiaoran's words were absolutely foolproof. Although the heavenly layer was big, how many supreme martial artists were there? There was no doubt that the Yi clan had the cultivation of a supreme martial artist, and there should be more than one supreme martial artist in the Yi clan. But, if it wasn't a matter of life and death for the Yi clan, how would a supreme martial artist take action so easily? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Chu Yang laughed. It's useless to think too much before it happens. It's better to take care of your body first. Elder brother, please enter the inner chamber and disperse your protective Shen technique. I'll suppress the shadowless poison for you first. Okay. Han Xiaoran said emotionally. When the lanterns were lit, the Lingyun Pavilion looked magnificent at night. Two youths were looking around in front of the Lingyun Pavilion, as if they were waiting for something. The top floor of the 7-story Lingyun Pavilion had 3 individual pavilions. It was named after the 3 stars gathering. Those who were able to attend the banquet not only represented wealth, but also the nobility of their status. The pavilion on the left was where Chu Feilong and Yi Wubo met last time. Now, Yi Wubo and Chu Feilong were sitting opposite each other inside. In front of the two of them were Yi Wubo's 2 bodyguards. Yi Wubo had 4 bodyguards, but the other 2 were nowhere to be seen. Chu Feilong's face was full of nervousness. He kept wiping his sweat and muttered in his heart, Why haven't they come yet? Why haven't they come yet? On the main seat, Yi Wubo's face was gloomy and cold. He said lightly, Why haven't they come yet? Chu Feilong, you've already exceeded the time limit that I gave you. Chu Feilong hurriedly said, 13th Master, please don't be angry. It's because the Hall of Justice went to invite Chu Yang. I think that's why Chu Yang is late. But since he's agreed, he should come. Yi Wubo snorted and said coldly, For so many years, I've never waited for anyone like this. I didn't expect to taste this kind of feeling for the first time in this small flat mountain ridge. Chu Feilong's face was full of cold sweat, and he didn't dare to say anything. At this moment, voices could be heard. Someone had already entered the pavilion, and the sound of tables and chairs being pulled open could be faintly heard. That elder with a goatee pushed the door open and said softly, 13th Master, Sho Xinliang and the others from the Hall of Justice have entered the pavilion. There's Sho Xinliang, Qin Baoshan from the Hall of Justice, and another elder.
Oh,
Do you have any impression of that person? Yi Wubwa asked. I haven't seen him before, the elder with a goatee said, but I think he should be an expert from the local Hall of Justice. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Yi Wubwa's mouth, and he said, It seems that Chu Yang is coming. He was silent for a while and praised, Chu Feilong, your nephew is really not simple. He's already expected that there'll be danger here, and has already called for reinforcements in advance to support the situation. Chu Feilong smiled bitterly and said, I've never been on good terms with him. It's reasonable for him to have such scruples. After all, he feels that only Sho Xinliang and the others can protect him here. It's not strange for him to do so. Yi Wubwa smiled. The elder with a goatee said, 13th Master, do you want to go over and greet him? Yi Wubwa snorted and said, No need. He raised his eyebrows and said gloomily, If I, Yi Wubwa, want to kill someone, I think Sho Xinliang won't dare to stop me. So what if I kill him in front of him? If I go over now and let Sho Xinliang know that I'm here, it won't be good. After this matter is over, I'll just inform him. Yes, the elder with a goatee didn't seem surprised at all. With the reputation of the 13th Master of the Yi clan, how would he be afraid of a mere law enforcement hall in the flat mountain ridge? At this moment, the sound of clothes fluttering in the air was heard, and a figure came in from the window. 13th Master, that Chu Yang is already on his way here. He's only a few thousand feet away from here. Yes, Yi Wubwa said, is he alone? Yes. He's wearing white clothes and walking slowly. His demeanor is very relaxed and free. The road to the underworld is short. It's also a good thing to be able to walk on it so easily. Yi Wubwa's ghostfire-like eyes flickered slightly, and a cruel smile appeared on his lips. As Chu Yang walked, he looked at the flat mountain ridge at night and couldn't help but feel that it had a different flavor. When he saw Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao, the two of them had already been waiting anxiously. When they saw Chu Yang coming, they instantly felt as if a huge treasure had fallen from the sky. You're finally here. Even Big Brother didn't come. Since two brothers invited me, I naturally have to come, Chu Yang said. Let's go up. The two of them sandwiched Chu Yang between them and walked up. So anxious. Chu Yang smiled and said, Two younger brothers are really enthusiastic. Chu Tonghu smiled sinisterly and said, Younger brother? Ha ha ha. Chu Yang, it's your good fortune to be able to call me younger brother in this life. When you walk on the road to the underworld in the future, don't forget this honor. Chu Yang was stunned and said, Younger brother Tonghu, what do you mean? We're brothers, and blood is thicker than water. Fuck. Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao scolded at the same time. Which one is your younger brother? You're a bastard with an unknown background. You're about to die without a complete corpse, but you're still dreaming. Chu Yang's eyes turned cold, and there was a faint blood-red killing intent flowing in them. Oh? What do you mean? Could it be that you've mistaken me for someone else? Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao knew that Chu Yang was going to die today, and they couldn't bear it anymore. They scolded him all the way, and thought that Chu Yang had lost his cultivation and couldn't get rid of them. So, they actually became unscrupulous, and scolded him continuously. Every time they scolded him, Chu Yang's face turned colder. Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao were venting their anger, and wanted to humiliate Chu Yang more before he died, but the reason why Chu Yang had endured until now was to accumulate a reason for himself to kill them. Although they were unfilial and incompatible, blood was thicker than water after all. Chu Yang didn't feel that there was anything wrong with killing 10,000 outsiders, but Chu Yang didn't have any scruples about killing his blood-related cousins. But now, the scruples in his heart were disappearing little by little along with Chu Tonghu and Chu Tongjiao's scolding. When he came to the front of the elegant room, a blood-red light flashed across Chu Yang's eyes. He finally figured out one thing. Enemies didn't differentiate between close and distant. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.